Chapter 496. The celestial constellation fruit tree had been nurtured for an unknown number of years, and there were only a total of over 10 fruits. The strongest powers in Xian King City, including the heavens chosen from the various major powers, all came here to vie for the fruits. But in the end, half of the fruits were taken away by a young man in white with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, he did so openly, killing more than half of the participants. Even when facing against the 6 heavens chosen, he still had the strength to resist. This matter would soon spread to Xian King City. At that time, the faces of those heavens chosen would all be thrown away. Too shameful, there were quite a few who didn't even manage to obtain a single constellation fruit. To them, this was an absolute humiliation. Their eyes stared dumbly at the deep crater in front of them. An intense killing intent gushed forth from Shang-Chi and the others. He fled. That was a spatial scroll. Shang Yu. Shang-Chi called out, only to see Shang Yu dashing over from behind. How could the impact of this battle not be intense? That young man in white was actually so terrifying. When she saw the spatial scroll, she instantly understood why Qin Wentian would fight with her for the spatial brush. He himself was a divine inscriptionist, and one that could inscribe divine inscriptions. To him, the spatial brush was equivalent to a spatial scroll. He naturally wanted it. Not only that, given Qin Wentian's personality, he would dare to snatch 7 constellation fruits under such circumstances. What was the point of him fighting with her for the spatial brush? Comparing the two of them, competing with her for the spatial brush was simply not worth mentioning. Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were behind, were also stunned speechless. So it turned out that he could have left long ago, but he didn't want to waste the spatial scroll. Instead, he chose to slaughter his way out and even wanted to kill Xiaoyu at the very last moment. He had once saved Xiaoyu's life, but Xiaoyu wanted to kill him instead. Before he left, he still wanted to reclaim Xiaoyu's life, but he was just a hair away. Su Feng and Ji Shui were thinking that if it wasn't for the 6 geniuses ganging up on him, Xiaoyu would have already died on the spot. Shang Yu, that spatial scroll, was it created after he seized the spatial brush? Shang-Chi asked Shang Yu. It should be, he is a divine inscriptionist grandmaster. Shang Yu nodded. The spectators were even more astonished. Just how powerful was Qin Wentian's combat prowess? Not only that, he was also a divine inscriptionist who could inscribe divine inscriptions on his own. If that's the case, he probably has more than one scroll. Shang-Chi's countenance was extremely sinister. Evidently, he had no intentions of sparing Qin Wentian. The value of those constellation fruits was indescribable, and after suffering such a huge loss, how could he give up so easily? However, if Qin Wentian had many space scrolls, even if they found him again, there would be no way to make him stay. At this moment, Shang-Chi and the others abruptly inclined their heads and stared at the sky behind them. Over there, a large number of experts from the various major powers had finally arrived. Sadly, it was already too late. They didn't manage to obtain many constellation fruits, all of them were with Qin Wentian. What happened? The experts who had just arrived were puzzled when they saw the situation. Weren't they supposed to be fighting and snatching? Why were they all standing here in a daze? Uncle. Shang Yu glanced at the person who asked the question. After which, she explained to him what had happened. Instantly, the experts who had just arrived understood what was going on. Doesn't the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan have the 10,000 miles tracking mirror? The expert from the King's Manor turned his gaze onto an expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan as he asked. The expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan nodded his head. If he has the space scrolls, even if we managed to track him, he would instantly flee. Hence, we need the aid of the sealing treasure of the Yin clan. That's right. If both the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan are willing to take out their treasures, there's no way for him to escape. The 10,000 miles tracking mirror would be able to lock onto an area of a few thousand miles. And given his strength, even if he inscribed the space scrolls, he would still be able to teleport a distance of 1,000 miles. The expert from the heaven-shocking sword sect nodded his head as he spoke. The eyes of the experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan flickered with uncertainty. After which, the expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan spoke. It's easy to say, but these two treasures are extraordinary. We have to report it to our clan first before we can claim it. In that case, after we obtain the constellation fruits, can't we split it among the major powers? The Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan can each take 2. As for the remaining 3, that's our problem. How about it? The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan pondered for a moment, but they didn't dare to offend the King's Manor too much. Hence, they nodded their heads in agreement. As for the other major powers, they were all silently cursing in their hearts. The King's Manor was extremely powerful. If the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan could take 2, he would definitely take the same number as well. In that case, it was as good as having nothing left for them to contend for. Fine, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to return and retrieve the treasures. The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan nodded their heads before their silhouettes flickered as they sped away. Their cultivation bases were already at the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper, and the existence of the constellation fruits would allow them to break through to the perfection boundary of their mandates. They might even be able to comprehend true intents. Uncle, there's one more here. At this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette flickered as he pointed towards the horizon. Over there, Su Feng and Ji Shui were currently flying away, yet the expert from the King's Manor called out, "The 2 of you, please wait a moment." Su Feng's silhouette trembled, he knew that he wouldn't be able to leave. He turned and stared at the experts flying over, his eyes staring straight at the expert from the King's Manor. Juniors are Su Feng from the Qinghua Mountain and junior sister Ji Shui. Our only constellation fruit was obtained through our own strength. Senior, it wouldn't be too good if we snatch it away forcefully. An outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain actually dares to speak to me in this manner? Hand it over. The expert from the King's Manor, Shang Xian, had a cultivation base at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper and was the grandson of the old king. It was just that the position of king had yet to be inherited by him, but given his status, why would he care about an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain? Su Feng's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. After which, he unwillingly handed over the constellation fruit. Shang Xian kept the constellation fruit with a wave of his hand as he coldly glanced at Su Feng. Senior, we'll meet again in the future. Su Feng clasped his hands as he coldly spoke. After which, he and Ji Shui turned and departed together, their hearts filled with an intense hatred. Senior, what is this 10,000 miles tracking mirror they spoke of? Ji Shui asked Su Feng. This treasure can track the aura of a person, locking on to their location. When Qin Wendian battled, he left behind traces of his aura. Hence, they were able to use this treasure to track him down. Su Feng replied, his words causing Ji Shui's countenance to stiffen. Doesn't that mean Brother Qin is in danger? That would depend on his good fortune. This time around, he snatched away 7 constellation fruits under the noses of so many geniuses, and even killed so many people. How could the major powers of the Xian King city not be enraged? They would definitely not spare him. Su Feng's words caused Ji Shui to feel a trace of worry in her heart. Would the young man in white with unparalleled talent be able to escape this calamity? Just like what those people had predicted, although Qin Wendian's divine inscription scrolls could allow him to teleport, he was after all only a 4th-ranked divine inscriptionist. It was extremely taxing for him to inscribe divine inscriptions, and he could only teleport a few hundred miles away in a random direction. But even so, it was sufficient to shake off those people. On a mountain slope about 400 miles away from those people, abruptly, spatial fluctuations could be felt as a white-robed silhouette appeared. It was none other than Qin Wendian. At this moment, his aura was fluctuating wildly, and his white robes were stained with blood. His body exuded an aura of weakness, yet his eyes shone with a brilliant light. His pitch-black pupils were as resplendent as the constellations in the night sky. This place is only a few hundred miles away, I have to continue advancing. If not, I'll be easily tracked. Qin Wendian silently mused as his silhouette flickered. Although he teleported a few hundred miles away in an instant, given the speed of a fifth-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, a distance of 500 miles wasn't a problem. However, even Qin Wendian himself didn't know where he was. It would be extremely difficult for them to track him, but for the sake of caution, he chose a direction and continued advancing. A few hours later, Qin Wendian arrived at a desolate mountain. He sat down cross-legged as Little Rascal squatted beside him and spat out a constellation fruit. This was none other than the constellation fruit that contained a powerful mandate of demons. If it's useful to you, just eat it. Qin Wendian spoke to Little Rascal when he sensed the mandate of demons. Yeah. Little Rascal nodded its head and actually chomped down on the constellation fruit, swallowing it whole. Qin Wendian also took out 6 constellation fruits. Because they had already been plucked, although the constellation fruits still contained a powerful mandate of demons within, they wouldn't be able to attack him. 2 spatial constellation fruits, these belong to Qing. I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to find me in a short period of time. Qin Wendian kept the spatial constellation fruit as he glanced at the other 4 constellation fruits that contained the mandate of Great Earth as well as the one that caused the hearts of those who looked at it to pound wildly. Such a powerful mandate of demons. Although it isn't the mandate I cultivate, I can still comprehend it frequently. Qin Wendian kept the constellation fruits. After the consecutive battles, his body was extremely weak. It wasn't the time for him to comprehend the constellation fruits yet. You swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast. Purgatory, will it be able to return? Qin Wendian gently stroked Little Rascal's head. Little Rascal nodded its head as it squeaked, causing a gentle smile to flicker in Qin Wendian's eyes. Purgatory, was it about to appear? Retrieving a pile of Yuan meteor stones, he placed them on the ground as he casually laid down on the ground, entering the dreamscape to cultivate. The rate at which he could absorb astral energy would be even faster. As night descended, the heavenly mountain range was filled with moisture. Astral light flashed as several beams of astral light cascaded downwards, absorbed by the silhouette lying on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. The mountain range was so quiet that it was terrifying. When Qin Wendian opened his eyes, he saw 2 silhouettes beside him. Other than Little Rascal, there was also a purgatory vermilion bird. Upon seeing Qin Wendian opening his eyes, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a long screech as it soared into the air. Qin Wendian inclined his head, only to see the purgatory vermilion bird circling above his head unceasingly, as though it was extremely excited. After a long time, it landed on his shoulder and flapped its gigantic wings, causing Qin Wendian's body to waver unstably, causing him to smile bitterly. Little Rascal, well done. Qin Wendian glanced at Little Rascal in front of him. Little Rascal leaped up and landed on his thighs, wagging its tail and raising its head. That complacent look on its face made it seem as though it was asking for credit. Bzzz. But at this instant, a ferocious might erupted forth from the purgatory vermilion bird. It soared into the air, staring at the horizon as it let out a long screech. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows as his perception gushed forth. After which, several silhouettes appeared in his perception. Lingering ghosts. A cold light flickered in Qin Wendian's eyes. He didn't expect these people to be able to find him here. His silhouette flickered as he shot forth like an arrow, instantly appearing in the distance. Ahead of him, the 6 heavens chosen brought many experts with them as they inclined their heads and stared at him. Do you think you can survive? Shang-Chi coldly snorted. Their bodies split up as the sword intent radiating from Qin Wendian churned unceasingly. But at this moment, a terrifying sealing energy suddenly erupted forth from a middle-aged man. In this vast space, a screen of light seemed to have appeared around him. Not good. Qin Wendian abruptly turned his gaze onto the middle-aged man. That middle-aged man had actually concealed his aura, and under his perception, he was actually a 7th-level heavenly dipper sovereign. Not only that, this sealing energy seemed to have isolated this entire space. Chapter 497. Qin Wentian's countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he stared at the middle-aged man before him. He naturally knew that the middle-aged man had a treasure that could seal this entire space, and had intentionally prepared it for him. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he rapidly retreated. He could already sense the existence of that sealing energy. With a wave of his palms, a beam of sword light slashed out, causing spatial ripples to appear. The sword light seemed to have slashed onto a layer of light, unable to cause any damage to it at all. It's useless. Yin Ting coldly spoke. This was an extremely powerful treasure of their Yin clan. This time around, they had taken it out to deal with him. How could they allow him to escape? I've said it before, you won't be able to escape. Shang-Chi walked forward as he coldly spoke. The geniuses from the 6 transcendent powers were all present, not a single one was missing. They closed in step by step, staring at Qin Wentian. In their eyes, Qin Wentian could sense a clear killing intent. Evidently, all of them wanted Qin Wentian to die. Qin Wentian didn't expect that the other party would be able to find him. Not only that, they even prepared such a powerful treasure for him. In that case, it wasn't a coincidence that they were able to track him down. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a baleful roar as its body blazed with purgatory flames. Only now did those experts turn serious as they stared at the purgatory vermilion bird. Their hearts were filled with shock. The demonic beasts on this person's body were all extremely strange. That snowy dog could change its size at will, and at this moment, there was actually a purgatory vermilion bird that exuded a terrifying aura. Qin Wentian glanced at the purgatory vermilion bird. He could sense how powerful its aura was. His heart was filled with shock as well. Seems like after Little Rascal swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast, purgatory grew even stronger. Little Rascal was extremely intelligent, it naturally understood the situation Qin Wentian was in right now. It opened its beak and spat out astral light into the air. Momentarily, the astral light drifted through the air, transforming into a nebula. Michem. Upon seeing this scene, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed with coldness. Kill that little demon. Yes. Behind him, several people walked towards the direction of Little Rascal. Qin Wentian retreated, blocking the way. Those people halted their steps, fear could be seen in their eyes. The scene of Qin Wentian's slaughter was still vivid in their minds. They didn't dare to offend this fiend. You seem to have a lot of spare time. A 7th-level heavenly dipper sovereign stepped out. However, the purgatory vermilion bird's silhouette flickered as it appeared in front of Qin Wentian, blocking his path. The baleful light in its eyes caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. The 6 heavens chosen all moved in the direction of Qin Wentian. This time around, all of them released their astral novas at the same time, their auras surging with power. They wouldn't give Qin Wentian the slightest chance. In the battle yesterday, Xia Yu was almost killed by Qin Wentian. He couldn't be careless when fighting with this person. If you had handed it over yesterday, you might have been spared from death. But now, there's only one path in front of you, death. Feng Yunhe coldly spoke. Such a situation was truly hopeless. There was no blood pool here, and Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't be able to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. He only had one option left, and that was to transform into a great rock once more, using the body of a great rock to slaughter everyone here. The nebula in the air converged as a celestial phenomenon manifested. This scene caused a strange light to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. Back then, Little Rascal had devoured the ancient formation of the vermilion bird. Now that the purgatory formation spirit had awakened, could it be that it would spit out the ancient formation and allow purgatory to control it? I have to buy some time for Little Rascal. Qin Wentian mused in his heart. The power of his bloodline surged forth once more. Yesterday, he had yet to fully recover from the usage of his bloodline power. Now that he was burning his bloodline with all his might, Qin Wentian suddenly felt as though he had surpassed the limits of his endurance. However, he had no other choice, he could only fight. The nebula in the air transformed into astral light that cascaded down onto the body of the purgatory vermilion bird, causing the flames on its body to grow even more terrifying. This scene caused the countenance of that expert to freeze as he spoke in a low voice, "Kill that vile creature quickly." As the sound of his voice faded, he lunged towards the purgatory vermilion bird. With a swipe of his palm, a terrifying palm imprint of lightning manifested in the air, enveloping the gigantic body of the purgatory vermilion bird as the might of thunder and lightning within it erupted forth. Purgatory howled in rage as purgatory flames erupted from its body, rushing towards the gigantic palm imprint. In an instant, they collided with each other, causing a terrifying might to engulf this entire space. At the same time, the six chosen all launched their attacks towards Qin Wentian. As for the others, they all focused on Little Rascal, launching their own sneak attacks. Qin Wentian's astral nova erupted forth as his demonic blood boiled. His demonic armor covered his body, giving him the appearance of a demon king. "Whoever dares to step forward, die!" Qin Wentian roared. Stomping on the ground, Sword Chi howled as it slashed down. "Why wouldn't I dare?" Jian Jingtian roared as his sword Chi shook the heavens. Similarly, he unleashed his astral nova, slamming out with his palms as rows of sharp swords whistled through the air. At the same time, the heaven-shocking sword slashed out, shaking mountains and rivers as it slashed towards Qin Wentian. Boom! Qin Wentian continuously stepped forward as the might of the seven slaughters sword soared to the extreme. "Do it!" Shang-Chi coldly commanded. Momentarily, the other experts all rushed towards Little Rascal. Qin Wentian stomped on the ground again as his sword Chi soared to a terrifying degree. His silhouette directly vanished, reappearing in the middle of the group of experts as he took his fifth step. Boundless sword intent swept out in all directions as his astral nova slashed out. Instantly, fresh blood splattered as the others all retreated in all directions. Boom! The heartbreak ancient bell caused the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. At the same time, Qin Wentian took his sixth step, causing all the experts present to feel as though they were completely suppressed by the sword. Light sounds of splattering rang out as one of them directly transformed into a rain of blood. At the same time, muffled groans rang out unceasingly as one expert after another collapsed. On the other side, Shang-Chi and the others all rushed towards Little Rascal. Feng Yunhe's speed was the fastest. His sharp claws directly smashed downwards, yet Little Rascal continued spitting out astral light as its body turned golden. Bang! The sharp claws slammed into its body. Little Rascal tumbled a few times before crawling back to its feet and continued to spit out astral energy. The astral energy permeated the air, enveloping Purgatory's body. "This Little Rascal can really endure." Xia Yu coldly spoke. His 9 arms transformed into towering fist might that blasted into Little Rascal's body. Rumbling sounds rang out as a terrifying might gushed into Little Rascal's body. Little Rascal's body flickered, yet it was still struck by the boundless fist light and was flung through the air, coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood. Its eyes were filled with baleful intent. It inclined its head and continued to spit out astral light. It was as though it was the same as Qin Wentian, possessing an intense obsession. Qin Wentian's killing intent soared to the extreme when he saw this scene. Stepping out, this was already his 7th step. The astral nova in his hands danced about, as though he was infused with boundless rage. Those who were still alive in the surroundings were all pierced through by the sword Chi, their throats lacerated by the sound of the sword as they died. However, these heaven-chosen didn't feel any pain in their hearts at all. It was as though these people weren't their subordinates. The threat of the 7 Annihilations swordplay was too great. Right now, he had already unleashed it once. He couldn't unleash the 7th strike of the 7 Annihilations swordplay a second time. "Are you going to die or not?" Xia Yu wasn't willing to spare Little Rascal. Once again, he blasted out a towering fist light towards Little Rascal. Each of his punches contained the might of the earth, as well as the sharpness of metal. How could Qin Wendian endure this? After killing the people here, he immediately activated stellar transposition and appeared beside Xiaoyu. The center of his brows glowed with a bright light as it shot into Xiaoyu's sea of consciousness. His astral nova directly flew out, aiming for Xiaoyu's head. However, at this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette appeared in front of him. A blood-colored palm imprint with a hint of golden light blasted out, as the power of his regenerative bloodline surged forth, slamming into Little Rascal's astral nova. Little Rascal was sent tumbling through the air from the impact of Xiaoyu's fist. At this moment, the silhouettes of several experts appeared outside this space. These people all exuded extraordinary auras, and none of them had appeared before this. They had been maintaining a distance from the group of people in front of them, so as to not alarm Qin Wendian and allow him to escape using a scroll. Only now did they catch up. Bzzz. A spatial fluctuation gushed out as the sealing energy in this space was broken apart. The silhouettes of those experts flickered as they directly rushed over. Just when Qin Wendian realized what was happening, the sealing energy appeared once more, sealing this space. Taking advantage of the time when he couldn't activate the spatial scroll, the other party allowed the other experts to enter. Qin Wendian swept his gaze over the cultivation bases of these experts as his countenance turned pale. This was a hopeless situation. The weakest among these people was at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. There was basically no hope at all. Demonic chi gushed forth from his body as his ancient will reached the heavens. Only the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation could resolve this crisis. However, at the next instant, Qin Wendian's countenance turned deathly pale. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation was unable to be activated. The sealing energy in this space wasn't just pure spatial energy. It was a spatial seal that sealed all connections with the outside world. The sealing energy within the treasure made it so that he had no way to form an innate connection with the constellations and borrow the power of the demonic divinities from the 8 directions. Knowing that it was impossible, Qin Wendian instantly gave up. His silhouette flickered as he appeared before Little Rascal. Those heavens chosen weren't in a hurry to act. Their gazes were filled with mockery as they stared at Qin Wendian. As for those experts who came over, they all stood in different directions. Qin Wendian was already in a hopeless situation. Little Rascal, if I die here, bring purgatory back to Grand Xia. Qin Wendian spoke in a low voice. If he used the immortal vanquishing swordplay in such a state, he would die without a doubt. But now, he had no other choice. Roar! Little Rascal let out a low-sounding roar as it shook its head frenziedly. It was still frenziedly spitting out astral energy. If you die, do you still want them to leave? These 2 demonic beasts are actually not bad mounts. There's even a vermilion bird among them. Shang-Chi's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Could it be that Qin Wendian still wanted to protect this demonic beast? Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? Settle this vermilion bird first, its aura is growing stronger. At this moment, the expert who was fighting against the vermilion bird spoke. A moment later, several experts dashed towards the vermilion bird. The body of the vermilion bird burned with a terrifying intensity, as though it wanted to burn everything away. With a sharp screech, it abruptly turned and spat out purgatory flames in the direction of Shang-Chi and the others. Careful! The others all shouted. Shang-Chi and the others hurriedly retreated while the vermilion bird lunged towards Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian, whose sword chi was still permeating the air, directly fell to the ground. Qin Wendian initially wanted to unleash the immortal vanquishing swordplay, yet he was interrupted by Purgatory. Purgatory didn't allow him to unleash this attack. Purgatory! Qin Wendian roared in rage. However, he only saw the Purgatory vermilion bird's wings wrapping around his body. The baleful eyes of the Purgatory vermilion bird flickered with a hint of gentleness. It was born because of Qin Wendian. How could it witness Qin Wendian's death the moment it appeared in this world? It, Purgatory, wouldn't agree to this. Chapter 498. As to why Qin Wendian dared to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay despite the consequences, it was because he cultivated the great nirvana immortal art and had another body in the royal tomb of Grand Xia. The comprehension of that body was equivalent to Qin Wendian's own body comprehending the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Hence, even if one of his bodies perished, he wouldn't die. Naturally, Qin Wendian regarded his true body with extreme importance. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, how would he want to perish? But now that he was surrounded by the experts from the various major powers, he was already in a hopeless situation. Either he died together or he died to protect Little Rascal and Purgatory. Under such circumstances, he naturally would rather choose to die himself. But even if he was willing to sacrifice himself, Purgatory wouldn't agree. To Purgatory, Qin Wendian was its everything. Hence, after knowing what Qin Wendian wanted to do, Purgatory directly pressed him and Little Rascal beneath it. After which, it spread out its wings, protecting the two of them. Its eyes gleamed with a ferocious light as it stared at everyone. "Purgatory, let me out." Qin Wendian roared, but Purgatory didn't seem to hear it. It tightly protected Qin Wendian under its body, its powerful might causing Qin Wendian to have no way to break free. What a loyal demonic beast. "Why don't you follow me?" An expert walked over, staring at Purgatory. Purgatory opened its mouth and spat out a Purgatory lotus, frenziedly flying over. That expert snorted coldly and stretched out his palm, causing the space around him to freeze, colliding with the Purgatory lotus. After which, both attacks shattered. The other experts all walked over, staring coldly at the Purgatory vermilion bird. In such a desperate situation, you still want to protect your master. As a vermilion bird, you are one of the 8 demonic gods. Leave with me, I won't mistreat you. Another expert walked over, wanting to subdue Purgatory, yet what welcomed him was still a towering Purgatory flame. You don't know what's good for you. That expert snorted coldly as he launched an attack. Since I can't tame this demon, I'll just kill it. Its flames are useful to me. One of the experts from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan coldly spoke. After which, he abruptly pointed a finger towards Purgatory. At the same time, the Ice Elemental expert stepped forth and slammed out with a palm imprint, freezing everything in its path as it slammed into Purgatory. Purgatory's body shuddered violently, but she remained motionless. This evil creature is really persistent. I really want to tame it. Unfortunately, it's so foolishly loyal. Another attack landed, each with a force of 1,000,000 Jin, causing Purgatory's body to tremble violently as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Even Qin Wendian, who was standing on the ground, could feel the strength of the shockwave. However, it was completely absorbed by Purgatory, and only a trace of the shockwave was transmitted to his body. Purgatory. Qin Wendian's eyes were scarlet red as he howled in rage. However, Purgatory didn't seem to hear him at all. It only had a single thought in its mind. Qin Wendian must not die. As long as it was around, Qin Wendian would be around as well. Although Little Rascal was being protected by Purgatory, it was still frenziedly spitting out astral energy. Its eyes were scarlet red, gleaming with an ominous light. Boom! A bolt of lightning smashed down, scorching the earth. Purgatory coughed out blood as cracks could be seen on its body. Fool, as expected of a vile creature. To think that you still refuse to step aside. A mocking voice rang out. After which, another powerful attack slammed down. Purgatory silently endured it, but the injuries on its body grew heavier and heavier. Scram! Qin Wendian used his immense strength, wanting to force Purgatory's body apart. However, he discovered that Purgatory's defense was extremely firm, not budging an inch. The spectators outside stared at the gigantic body of Purgatory. The number of injuries on its body increased, yet it still coiled there, protecting Qin Wendian. It was as though it was telling the spectators that if they wanted to kill Qin Wendian, they had to step over its corpse first. Roar! Qin Wentian's roars rang out as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth frenziedly. The blood in Qin Wentian's body seemed to be going berserk as a fearsome demonic energy gushed forth. It was as though his will of the mandate of demons had grown even stronger, as though it had stepped into the transformation boundary of the second level. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian didn't feel any excitement at all. He only wanted to push purgatory away. But even if his strength increased explosively, it was useless. Purgatory wouldn't leave even if it died. The spectators outside stood there, not continuing their attacks. Right now, they were all stunned by Purgatory's loyalty. Under such a barrage of attacks, if it was an ordinary demonic beast, it would have died countless times already. However, the Purgatory Vermilion Bird continued to protect Qin Wentian. This was its conviction. Qin Wentian was even more important than its own life. Staring at the weakening aura of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird, the countenances of the spectators grew incredibly unsightly. This demonic beast's defense is truly strong. Even that little bastard is the same, we can't kill it no matter what. In fact, they even felt somewhat jealous of Qin Wentian for having two demonic beasts as his companions. Strong and loyal. Continue attacking. Since it cannot be tamed, we can only kill it. A cold voice rang out. The spectators were all extremely depressed, they actually couldn't even kill a single demonic beast. Yes. An expert nodded. After that, he stepped forth, appearing before Purgatory. He lifted his palm as a terrifying energy gushed forth. His fingers seemed to be imbued with a golden sword that could penetrate through everything. Pressing down with a single finger, he shot towards Purgatory. But right at this moment, the weak and silent Purgatory suddenly erupted with a terrifying might. Buzz! The huge body of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird moved. In an instant, it spat out a Purgatory Fire Lotus, directly engulfing that expert. Arg! The blink of an eye, the expert's body was burned to ashes. Below Purgatory, a shocking scene appeared. It was unknown how much astral light little rascal had spat out, but Purgatory had been continuously swallowing it, accumulating energy. It didn't use any energy to resist, it was accumulating energy to attack, not wanting to waste the slightest bit of energy. These astral lights floated in the air, cascading onto Purgatory's body. Other than this, Qin Wentian's wrist had already been sliced open. His fingers pierced into Purgatory's body as fresh blood flowed from his wrist, seeping into Purgatory's body. Earlier, he was feeding Purgatory the power of his bloodline. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with coldness, piercing into the eyes of those who looked at him. Such coldness could freeze the bodies of those who looked at him. Just a single glance from him was sufficient to cause despair in their hearts. Purgatory let out a long howl as it frenziedly spat out more hellfire, sweeping through the entire space. Yet another person was incinerated, his body completely unextinguished. Go! With a loud shout, everyone hurriedly retreated. However, they only saw Purgatory rushing out, its hellfire sweeping through everything. Qin Wentian followed behind it, his blood still flowing into Purgatory's body. Purgatory unleashed its ferocious might, the experts from the various powers hurriedly brought their own geniuses and retreated. Release the seal. A loud shout rang out, the experts from the Yin clan released the seal, allowing the Purgatory Vermilion Bird to continue rushing forward. Leave quickly. The expressions of those experts turned extremely ugly to behold as they hurriedly fled. They didn't expect that the Purgatory Vermilion Bird would suddenly become so violent. The Purgatory Vermilion Bird didn't chase after them. Its aura was rapidly weakening, but it still floated in the air, staring at the fleeing experts. Qin Wentian stood below Purgatory, the blood in his body seethed madly. Not long ago, when he was in a frenzied state, he could faintly sense that there was another kind of terrifying power within his demonic bloodline. It was just that he hadn't activated it yet. Hence, he decided to channel the power of his bloodline into Purgatory's body. However, in order to protect Qin Wentian, Purgatory didn't use any of its energy to attack. It didn't care about its life at all, only focusing on accumulating energy. This was why after Qin Wendian channeled the power of his bloodline into its body, in addition to the combined efforts of it and Little Rascal, it was able to ignite its own energy and unleash such a terrifying combat prowess. However, Qin Wendian understood that this was merely a flash in the pan. Purgatory had almost exhausted all of its energy. Pooh! Purgatory's body fell downwards, its entire body was incomparably weak, it no longer had any strength left. Qin Wendian hugged its body as that gigantic body pressed down on him. Purgatory's eyes were still open as it stared at Qin Wendian with a gentle smile on its face. It had done it, it had protected Qin Wendian from death. In that case, everything it had done was worth it. Staring at the smile in Purgatory's eyes, Qin Wendian felt pain in his heart. Purgatory was a demonic spirit, protecting him was its strongest obsession. If he was born, it would be born. If it wanted him to die, it would die first. This was the love of demonic spirits. How many people in the mortal world could compare to it? Because, it was born because of him. In that case, it would also die because of him. Little Rascal flew over. Its eyes were red as well, filled with tears. It was sentient and similarly contained intense emotions. It had always depended on Qin Wendian for survival. After that, it devoured Purgatory and gained emotions. But Qin Wendian was their only protector. Purgatory was the same as it was willing to give up its life to protect him. Qin Wendian stared at the two demonic beasts, feeling warmth in his heart. But when he thought of what happened earlier, his heart ached again. In this life, I won't let you down. Qin Wendian stared at the two demonic beasts. His eyes were moist, but a warm smile could be seen on his face. He then spoke to Purgatory, my bloodline is able to give birth to demons. Purgatory, enter my bloodline first. As he spoke, his hands landed on Purgatory's body. In an instant, Purgatory's body was directly absorbed into his bloodline. Purgatory's body entered his bloodline, circulating within his body. Little Rascal's eyes brightened, its heart was similarly moved. In this life, I won't let you down. Yah! A light sound rang out as Little Rascal soared up into the air. A pair of wings appeared on its back as it floated in the air. It lowered its head and stared at the horizon as it called out, Qin Wendian. This voice was extremely childish and unclear, but Qin Wendian's eyes gleamed with a resplendent light. He inclined his head and stared at the silhouette in the air as the smile in his eyes grew even more intense. This was the first time Little Rascal spoke. Qin Wendian. His eyes slowly turned over, staring in the direction of Xian King City. The smile on his face vanished, replaced by a cold light. This hatred shall be repaid with blood. Chapter 499. Atop the desolate mountain, the white-robed young man's robes were dyed red with blood. His eyes gleamed with a cold light, causing the temperature of the entire space to drop drastically. Xian King City, all the geniuses were waiting. With a flicker of his silhouette, Qin Wendian carried Little Rascal in his arms as he sped away like the wind. Evidently, he couldn't stay here any longer. Now that Purgatory had been absorbed into his bloodline, it would be able to recuperate within his bloodline. Qin Wendian also didn't know why his ancient demonic bloodline would suddenly have a different kind of ability. He could only speculate that this might have something to do with the immortal vanquishing swordplay he had absorbed earlier. The blood in the pool was incinerated by the immortal vanquishing swordplay, and some of it was absorbed by his bloodline, stimulating his demonic bloodline, causing it to become even more violent. This was also the reason why he was able to step into the transformation realm of the second level of demons so quickly. Lowering his head, he stared at the injured Little Rascal in his arms only to see Little Rascal tilting its head upwards as it spoke in a baby voice, Little Rascal. Yes, Little Rascal. When Qin Wendian heard this voice, the dark clouds in his heart seemed to have dispersed. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he gently stroked Little Rascal's head. Don't, like. Huan. Little Rascal's lips twitched as it shook its head. This was the first time it used its human voice to express its dissatisfaction towards the name Qin Wendian gave it. Ha, I've already gotten used to it after so long. Qin Wendian lightly flicked Little Rascal's head. Momentarily, Little Rascal furrowed its brows as a look of grievance flashed in its eyes. After learning how to speak, Little Rascal was becoming more and more human-like. The silhouettes of a man and a demonic beast gradually faded away, leaving this desolate mountain range as they headed towards the depths of the heavenly mountain range. In the Xian King city, there were many rumors circulating around. It was rumored that during the heavenly mountain treasure seizing assembly, a young man in white appeared. This young man claimed that his surname was Qin and that he snatched away Shang Yu's spatial brush, humiliated Yin Cheng and Jin Zhan, and was incomparably arrogant. After that, he inscribed divine inscriptions and killed Grandmaster Qiu. Not only so, it was rumored that a mysterious realm had appeared. In this mysterious realm, the geniuses of the various major powers led their experts to explore it and discovered that the mysterious realm was actually the burial ground of a legendary expert. The celestial constellation fruit trees were born there and the various major powers fought over it. However, this young man surnamed Qin suddenly appeared out of nowhere and fought against all the experts, killing more than half of them. He even fought against the combined forces of 6 geniuses, and after that, he managed to escape unscathed with half of the celestial constellation fruits. What was even more shocking was that this young man's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. For him, the Heavenly Rock Aristocrat clan brought out the 10,000 miles tracking mirror, the Yin clan brought out a sealing treasure, and the experts from the Heavenly Rock Aristocrat clan once again tried to find the young man in white. However, all of them returned in low spirits with heavy casualties. There were even 2 experts at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper who died. As for what exactly happened in that battle, nobody knew. But that young man in white who had never appeared before in the Xian King city was rumored to have 3 heads and 6 arms. As for the young man in white right now, he was still bitterly cultivating in the Heavenly Mountain Range. In the depths of the Heavenly Mountain Range, there was a wondrous scene. Qin Wendian sat on the peak of a mountain as he stared ahead. Over there, snowflakes drifted about, and the endless mountain range was completely covered in ice and snow, exuding an extremely cold intent. This piece of land seemed to be separated into 2 parts. One part was covered in ice and snow, while the other was covered in ice and snow. There wasn't a single snowflake at all on Qin Wendian's side. Qin Wendian sat there cross-legged, holding 2 constellation fruits in his hands. One was a dark red fruit that could cause one's heart to throb, while the other was a fruit that contained the will of the mandate of Great Earth within it. He didn't directly swallow it. This fruit contained an intense mandate of Great Earth, allowing one to sense it unceasingly. If he directly swallowed it, there might be a miraculous effect, but after that, there would be nothing left. It was best to swallow it at the most crucial moment. Qin Wendian quietly held the constellation fruits in his hands. His heartbeat was extremely fast, yet there was a certain rhythm to it. With every heartbeat, every meridian in his body seemed to be pulsating along with it. And that Great Earth fruit could even allow him to sense the pulsation of the earth. It was as though the earth itself was beating just like his heartbeat. Qin Wendian entered a state of selflessness, fully immersing himself in sensing the pulsation of the earth, forgetting his own heartbeat as he entered an ethereal state. Following the pulsation of the earth, his perception unceasingly extended outwards. Gradually, the rate of his heartbeat slowed down. Gradually, it stabilized, no longer beating as intensely as before. It was as though his heartbeat had entered the same rhythm as the pulsation of the earth. This feeling was as though he was a part of the earth. His body had fused together with the earth. As his cultivation base grew stronger, Qin Wendian could even comprehend the mandate of Great Earth. But because he didn't have an astral soul of the mandate of Great Earth, there was no way for him to condense an astral nova. Even if he could comprehend it, the effect would be weaker compared to his own mandate of Great Earth. Not only that, he would require more time to cultivate. After all, right now, he was only able to enter this state because of the constellation fruits. After a long period of time, Qin Wendian's heartbeat was so calm that it almost stopped. Exhaling, he opened his eyes and stretched lazily, feeling extremely comfortable. The feeling of entering this state every day was simply too wonderful. It was as though the earth itself was his muscles, bones, blood, and flesh, pulsating along with his heartbeat. It's about time for my mandate of force to break through. Qin Wendian stood up and walked towards the mountain rampart. His perception extended outwards as he punched out with his fist. That seemingly calm punch slammed into the mountain rampart, causing a terrifying shockwave to rapidly extend outwards. The pulsation of the entire mountain rampart grew even more intense, and after which, cracking sounds rang out as cracks appeared, resembling spiderwebs. Shatter. Qin Wendian's palms trembled as he lightly spoke. An instant later, a thunderous boom rang out as the mountain rampart in front of him was reduced to dust. A smile appeared on Qin Wendian's face as he spoke in a low voice. Indeed, the mandate of force and the mandate of Great Earth have some similarities. The second-level mandate of force I've comprehended is the void shockwave. Isn't that a type of pulsation as well? The pulsations of the mandate of force would be able to spread outwards, destroying everything in its path. Right now, my second-level mandate of force has also broken through to the transformation boundary. Right now, of the 4 types of mandates, the mandate of force, the mandate of demons, and the mandate of swords, had all broken through to the transformation boundary of the second level. As for the mandate of dreams, Di Tian was currently cultivating the great dream immortal art in the royal tomb. He could faintly sense that his mandate of dreams was also on the verge of breaking through. Most probably, it wouldn't be long before all 4 of his mandates would break through to the transformation boundary of the second level. A bright light flashed as the scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wendian's hands. His silhouette flickered as he stepped into the vast expanse of snow. Snow and ice drifted down from the skies as Qin Wendian pierced out with his halberd, seeking to find the strongest power in each of his halberd strikes. When he first stepped onto the path of cultivation, Qin Wendian already knew the tempered thousand hammer refinement art. Any type of innate technique could be transformed into a qualitative one through quantitative changes. Right now, he had many methods at his disposal, yet it was extremely difficult for him to fuse them all into one, achieving a perfect fusion point. For example, the halberd arts he had created in the past weren't suitable for the current him, they were too weak. However, what if he were to fuse his comprehensions and mandates into his halberd arts? He would definitely be able to unleash 10 to 100 times more power. But how could such a fusion be achieved so easily? This was a process of creation. He needed to continuously temper his halberd arts before he knew if there was a possibility of success. The boundless snowflakes brought with them a bone-piercing chill, yet it was as though the white-robed young man couldn't sense it at all. From start to end, he was clad in a thin white robe, as though he wanted to fuse as one with the snowflakes. Only the halberd arts he executed seemed to be perfecting themselves. A day passed. 7 days passed. In the blink of an eye, 9 days passed. The white-robed young man was still the same as before. He had already lost count of how many halberd strikes he had executed, but right now, he could already unleash his halberd strikes soundlessly. It wasn't that there was no sound, it was just that the speed of his attacks was simply too fast. The silhouette of the white-robed young man flickered as he stared at the snowy mountain in front of him. Stepping out, his halberd slashed out like a dragon, causing the surrounding snowflakes to freeze. As the halberd landed, there was still no sound. However, the snowy mountain started to crumble inch by inch as the power of his halberd seeped into it. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as the entire snowy mountain collapsed. As for the area where the halberd landed, everything was turned into dust. Still not strong enough. My strongest void formation ripples destroyed the pulsation of the entire mountain in a single strike. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows, as though he was still unsatisfied. After which, he brandished his scarlet demon halberd again and again. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days passed. Snowflakes continued to fall. On the snowy ground, little rascal was sprawled on the ground, as though he was one with the snow. Behind them, atop a snowy mountain, a figure as beautiful as a snow lotus had unknowingly appeared there, quietly observing the white-robed young man as he practiced his halberd strikes. Several hours later, the white-robed young man stopped once again. In his eyes, a hint of a smile could be seen. My mandate of dreams has reached the transformation boundary of the second level. Qin Wendian smiled. Right now, all 4 of his mandates had stepped into the transformation boundary of the second level. If he encountered the 6 chosen again, Qin Wendian would definitely be able to kill them all. Even if the 6 of them ganged up on him, it would be the same. One must know that a few days ago, when he fought against the 6 chosen, his greatest reliance was his sword. The 7 annihilation swordplay, his mandate of swords was only at the transformation boundary. Now, he had 4 different mandates. As though he had sensed something, Qin Wendian turned and saw the silhouette atop the snowy mountain. His eyes that were as bright as the stars in the night sky involuntarily brightened. Qin Wendian's silhouette flickered as he appeared on the snowy mountain. That cold silhouette stared at him, her eyes gleaming with intelligence, yet she still didn't like to speak. These 2 constellation fruits are the mandate of space, they should be useful to you. Qin Wendian passed the fruits over to Qing. Qing glanced at them, but she didn't stretch her hands out. Qing take them. Qin Wendian commanded. Oh. Qing replied in a crisp voice as she stretched her hands out to receive the constellation fruits. However, the expression on her face was still the same, it was unknown what she was thinking in her heart. I'm leaving. Qin Wendian turned, his silhouette flickered as he stepped into the vast expanse of ice and snow once again. Staring at his back, the lines on Qing's face twitched as a smile appeared on her face. This smile of hers seemed to be able to melt all the ice and snow in this world. Chapter 500. Qin Wendian returned to the snowy ground, brandishing his scarlet demon halberd unceasingly. Sometimes, there was only a single movement, but he would consecutively brandish the halberd hundreds of times, or even thousands of times. He was constantly adjusting himself, improving himself. Little rascal continued to lay there, watching. Qing also stood there quietly. She didn't participate in that battle and only found Qin Wendian after that. However, she could faintly sense that Qin Wendian must have experienced something. His love, his hate, all of these would transform into his actions, becoming his obsessions, causing him to use all methods to improve himself. Qin Wendian was such a person. In this world, other than the 16-year-old Qin Wendian, Qin Chuan and Qin Ya were the ones who accompanied Qin Wendian the most, the one who stayed by his side the longest after he started cultivating was none other than Qing Although the amount of time Qing spent by Qin Wendian's side wasn't very long, Qing knew all of his actions. There were many things Qing didn't understand because no one had taught her before. But with regards to Qin Wendian, she understood him very well. She understood his habits, and understood his obsessions. Lowering her head, she stared at the constellation fruit in her hands. Her beautiful eyes flickered as a warm current flowed through her heart. It was very rare for her to have such a feeling, but this time around, she felt it. It was as though many of the things she had done were all worth it. Under thousands of tempering, Qin Wendian's halberd arts grew stronger and stronger. If someone fought against him, they would even see illusions when he struck out with his halberd. After several days, Qin Wendian finally stopped his halberd practice. He sat on the snowy ground and took out the dark red constellation fruit. This constellation fruit was able to cause one's heart to palpitate unceasingly. In fact, it was able to allow him to sense each and every part of his body. The mandate contained within it was akin to the will of the heart. This kind of energy, if I can infuse it into the Heartbreak Ancient Bell, the might of the Heartbreak Ancient Bell would surely be even more terrifying. Qin Wendian mused. After which, he closed his eyes and quietly contemplated. Within the royal tomb, Di Tian was also cultivating. Both of them were cultivating and comprehending at the same time. Qin Wendian improved day by day, growing stronger and stronger. In the night, the snowflakes continued to fall unceasingly. A white-robed silhouette quietly laid in the midst of the snow. From the heavens, resplendent beams of light cascaded downwards, as though there were 4 constellations shooting out beams of light that landed on Qin Wentian's body. The energy from the constellations unceasingly flowed into his body, and within his Yuanfu, his astral nova slowly solidified. During the day, he would wake up again to cultivate. How many days and nights had he passed like this, as though he would never know fatigue? At a place extremely far away from Qin Wentian, a few silhouettes could be seen flying through the air. The person in the lead was an old man who looked extremely ordinary, around 50 years of age. He didn't exude any aura at all, but his eyes were filled with spirit. His hair was as white as snow, causing him to be even more compatible with this place. To think that there's actually a little child cultivating here. The old man mumbled in a low voice. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate through space, landing on Qin Wentian, who was currently cultivating on the snowy ground. With a casual smile, the old man continued walking. But an instant later, he halted his steps, as a serious expression flickered in his eyes. Interesting, his second-level mandate has already reached the transformation boundary, yet his cultivation base is only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. This old man was able to see through Qin Wentian with a single glance. Although he was spying on Qin Wentian didn't seem to notice his existence at all. Looking at his age, he should be around 25 years of age. It's already extremely rare for his cultivation base to reach this level. Not only that, his mandate is also so powerful, much stronger compared to the disciples chosen by those good-for-nothing fellows. The old man shook his head, feeling somewhat depressed as he continued on his way. His silhouette was like a gust of wind, bringing the person beside him with him as he sped past not far away from Qin Wentian. And at this moment, Qin Wentian, who was in the midst of his cultivation, suddenly furrowed his brows as he halted his steps. Wielding the scarlet demon halberd in his hands, he stared in the direction of the old man as he coldly asked, "Who's spying on me?" "Michem." The old man abruptly halted his steps, his gaze piercing through space as a smile appeared on his face. Interesting, a little fellow at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper was actually able to discover me. Stepping out, his silhouette instantly appeared in front of Qin Wentian, as he stared at Qin Wentian with interest. Qin Wentian's countenance flickered. With the lesson from last time, he was now exceptionally vigilant. However, as he swept his gaze over, he couldn't help but feel astonishment in his heart. He couldn't see through the cultivation base of this old man at all. With a single glance, he could tell that this old man was just an ordinary old man. Beside him were 2 attendants that resembled children, and both of them were extremely powerful as well. Qin Wentian had no way to resist an expert of this level. He could only hope that this old man wasn't someone from the powers that the 6 chosen belonged to. In Qin Wentian's hands, a scroll had already appeared. What a vigilant fellow. Are you afraid that I will eat you up? The old man laughed as he stared at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian didn't dare to let his guard down. Little Rascal had already stealthily appeared beside him, and Qing was also moving closer. Junior has an enemy chasing after me, so I have no choice but to be more vigilant. Senior, who are you? Qin Wentian asked. Ha, what an interesting little doll. If I were your enemy, would you still have the chance to use the spatial scroll? The old man had a playful smile on his face. After which, he made a grabbing motion in the air, and instantly, Qin Wentian's body was sealed in ice, unable to move at all. His body was directly lifted up into the air. Release him. Qing stepped out, her quick-witted eyes stared at the old man as she coldly spoke, as an intense cold intent gushed forth from her. Bastard! Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as he similarly appeared in front of Qin Wentian, glaring at the old man as a baleful light flashed in his eyes. However, this didn't match the childlike voice of Little Rascal. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Such strength was simply too overwhelming. Indeed, given Little Rascal's strength, if it was someone from the 6 chosen powers, they would have directly acted to kill him. He wouldn't even have the chance to use the spatial scroll. You dared to call this old man a bastard? The old man glared at little rascal as a baleful expression appeared on his face. How many years has it been since someone dared to scold this old man? Who would have thought that today, a little demon would actually do so? You guys are blocking my path, aren't you afraid that I will kill all of you? Release him. Ching was still as cold as ever, as though she didn't know how strong this old man was. The old man scrutinized Ching as he laughed in a low voice. How interesting. Little doll, you are so beautiful and you're proficient in spatial energy. The energy stored within your body is extremely strong as well. Do you want to be my disciple? You're not worthy. Qin Wendian coldly spoke, causing the old man to glance at him as he giggled. I'm not worthy. Which part of me isn't worthy? As an old man, you're bullying the younger generation. What qualifications do you have to be the teacher of others? Qin Wendian coldly spoke. He was feeling extremely depressed as well. He was cultivating in this place and he actually met an old man who was also extremely powerful. Don't you know that strength is everything in this world? As long as you have strength, it's enough. The old man laughed as he stared at Qin Wendian. If choosing a master or disciple doesn't depend on one's character, only on strength and talent, as the teacher, if he is narrow-minded, how can he be willing to see his disciple surpass him? As for the disciple, if he doesn't remember the kindness of the master and only remembers the blame of the master, how can he not harbor hatred in his heart? It's only a matter of time before the master and disciple fall out with each other. Why is there a need to choose a master? Qin Wendian coldly spoke. I'm just a junior, I'm cultivating here peacefully. If I've offended senior, feel free to tell me. Why must you humiliate me just because you're stronger than me? What a sharp-tongued fellow, you want to provoke me into releasing you. The old man laughed as he stared at Qin Wendian, his words causing Qin Wendian's countenance to turn extremely unsightly. This old man didn't seem to be affected by his words. Fine, this old man will release you then. The old man spoke. With a wave of his palms, the pressure on Qin Wendian vanished. Little rascal and Qing retreated back to Qin Wendian's side as they stared at the old man with vigilance. This old man's personality was extremely strange. He clearly knew that Qin Wendian was trying to provoke him, yet he still released Qin Wendian. To be able to make a demonic beast and a peerless beauty do such a thing for you, your character shouldn't be too bad. This old man will give you a chance to become my disciple. How about it? The old man stared at Qin Wendian as he smiled. If I reject, will senior make things difficult for me? Qin Wendian's eyes flashed as he asked. I won't say a single word and will leave immediately. But you should know that there are countless people who would beg for such an opportunity. The old man narrowed his eyes. Although he exuded the aura of a transcendent being, he looked like an old urchin. I refuse. As soon as the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian bluntly spat out 2 words, causing a look of astonishment to appear on the old man's face. Staring at Qin Wendian, the smile on his face disappeared as his countenance gradually sank. This was truly embarrassing. He wanted to accept a disciple but was actually rejected. If this news were to spread out, he would have nowhere to hide his old face. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Earlier, he had said that if Qin Wendian rejected him, he wouldn't say a single word and would leave immediately. Turning around, the old man actually started to walk away. But after walking for a short distance, he suddenly halted. The person behind him turned around and stared at Qin Wendian as he asked, this old man still wants to know the reason. Although these words were spoken by the little boy, Qin Wendian naturally understood that he was speaking on behalf of the old man. Since the old man agreed to not say anything, Qin Wendian naturally wouldn't say anything. But even so, he couldn't help but to ask. Hence, he transmitted his voice to the little boy beside him, asking him to speak on his behalf. There's no reason, I don't want to take a master. I can still cultivate by myself and grow through tempering. Qin Wendian faintly replied. Is this considered a reason? Such an opportunity is something that countless people can only dream of. The old man seemed to be extremely depressed as he continued to speak through the little boy. Senior, you really only think of yourself. Junior doesn't even know your identity. Just because you are strong, I want to take you as my master and follow you. Qin Wentian's voice was ice-cold as he continued, if that's the case, isn't Senior looking down on the geniuses of this world too much? Even if Senior's strength is truly strong, this Junior has only cultivated for less than 10 years and has already reached the transformation boundary of the second level. Although I don't dare to say that I'm outstanding, I don't want to belittle myself either. If I cultivated to Senior's age, how could I be at Senior's level? Arrogant. This time, the old man was the one who spoke, staring at Qin Wentian. But as the sound of his voice faded, he flicked his sleeves and directly departed. Chapter 501. Only after the old man left did Qin Wentian heave a sigh of relief. That old man was too strong and had an eccentric personality. Qin Wentian tried to goad him into joining and it actually worked. As for the words he said after that, half of it was to provoke the old man away, while the other half was from his heart. From the start of his cultivation till now, he had never met someone whose astral soul was more outstanding than his. And among those at the same cultivation level, he had never met someone whose combat prowess was stronger than his. Qin Wentian didn't dare to say that there were none in this world. After all, the world was too vast, so vast that he couldn't even see through it despite being at the peak of the third level of Heavenly Dipper. However, Qin Wentian at least had an intense confidence in himself. This was his conviction. Putting this matter aside, Qin Wentian brandished his scarlet demon halberd and continued his cultivation. Since it was a false alarm, nothing would be able to affect his state of heart and disrupt his cultivation. Right now, his cultivation base had already broken through to the third level of Heavenly Dipper, and all 4 of his mandates were at the transformation boundary of the second level. His state of heart was also sufficient, and he could faintly sense that he wasn't too far away from the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Although cultivation was boring, as long as one's heart was set on it, no matter how boring it was, one would still be able to maintain the passion to strive for it. Although the old man had departed, he didn't leave the area completely. He went to a faraway place and sat cross-legged on a snowy mountain. Qin Wentian's every action was seen by him. This old man originally had something to do and passed by here. Who would have thought that I would meet a bastard like you? Ignorant, arrogant, and infuriating. I really want to see how capable you are. The white-haired old man seemed to be extremely depressed as he mumbled to himself. The little boy behind him didn't say anything, yet he was depressed in his heart as well. That fellow was really. How many people dreamed of entering the ancestors' tutelage? Yet he actually rejected it. The ancestor's personality was eccentric. Sometimes, he would be calm and steady, and sometimes, he would be as mischievous as a youth. He would do whatever he wanted, disregarding the opinions of others. But today, he was actually offended by a junior. He must be feeling extremely depressed in his heart. When had he ever been rejected by anyone before? He sat there for a full 30 days. The old man saw many things that he couldn't see in the past. It seemed to be an extremely boring thing, but the old man could sit there quietly for 30 days. In the past 30 days, he saw the human and demonic beast companions helping each other in times of hardship. That kind of affection could be seen from their smiles. He also saw a kind of protectiveness. The girl seemed to be cultivating, but her attention was often on Qin Wentian. This kind of protectiveness surprised him. Who was this boy? How could he be worthy of such a beautiful woman's attention? He saw a kind of persistence, a kind of obsession. Every strike of the halberd, every sword, and every palm contained perseverance. It was as if he would never feel tired, never feel dull, and always be full of vigor. Every time he failed to break through to the next realm, he did not give up. Instead, he was cautious and determined to start all over again. He didn't know who this young man was, or what he had experienced, but his character and persistence gradually made the old man's gaze turn solemn. The old man had seen countless people in his life. When he judged people, he had never only judged them based on their talent. On the contrary, when he told Qin Wentian that in this world, strength reigns supreme, he was also probing Qin Wentian. He wanted to see Qin Wentian's reaction. In truth, although Qin Wentian had angered him, he wasn't angry at all. Because, Qin Wentian's words were in line with his personality. If not, no matter how high Qin Wentian's talent was, he wouldn't waste any more time here. The reason why he stayed was because he wanted to see clearly. During this 1 month, although the things that happened there were simple, it caused him to be extremely moved. For a person to cultivate an innate technique, practicing it once, 10 times, or 100 times wasn't considered much. Practicing it 1,000 times could be considered as hard work. But if one didn't want to stop, practicing it 10,000 times, or even 100,000 times, just to perfect a single halberd strike, with such a stubborn heart, in addition to his talent, it would be extremely difficult for him to not become a towering figure. Although the words of the young man were arrogant, they weren't fake. He used his own hard work and talent to support his arrogance. This young man has great potential, the old man murmured. After which, he closed his eyes and sank into a state of absolute silence. In a place extremely far away from Xian King City, there was a region where experts were as common as the clouds. And in this region, there was a hegemon named the Royal Sacred Sect. The Royal Sacred Sect had been established for countless years, and it controlled the 9 great sects, 3 empires, as well as a boundlessly vast territory. The geniuses of these powers would constantly be sent into the Royal Sacred Sect, and the various factions would compete with each other to distinguish themselves, gradually revealing their brilliance and becoming the leaders of the various factions in the Royal Sacred Sect. The Royal Sacred Sect that encompassed the various factions, how glorious and powerful was it? It was simply unimaginable. However, after countless years of development, the various factions of the Royal Sacred Sect were actually closely related to the 9 great sects and the 3 great royal cities. The 9 sects and 3 empires were all vassals to the various factions of the Royal Sacred Sect. The Battle Sword Sect was the most unique among the 9 sections. The number of people in this sect was the lowest, and their numbers couldn't even be compared to Grand Shang and Grand Zhou. Hence, there was a saying that the Battle Sword Sect was the weakest among the 9 sections. However, no one dared to look down on the Battle Sword Sect. Although the Battle Sword Sect had the lowest number of members, every few years, there would always be a peerless genius emerging from the Battle Sword Sect. Not only that, the personalities of the people in the Battle Sword Sect were all different from the rest. They were arrogant and unyielding, wielding their swords to conquer the world. At this moment, within the Battle Sword Sect, although there weren't many people in the Battle Sword Sect, anyone who stepped into this place would definitely be a dazzling character that could dazzle an entire region. However, at this moment, several powerful characters of the Battle Sword Sect had solemn expressions on their faces as they walked in the direction of a great hall. The auras of this group of people were all extraordinary. Any random one of them was an extremely outstanding character. Their eyes shone with a bright light as they stepped into the great hall. Expressions of respect could be seen on their faces as they lowered their heads slightly. It was as though the object in front of them was an extremely precious treasure. But in reality, there was only a statue there. However, this statue was glowing with a faint light, as though it was a living creature. Master has manifested his will, I wonder what instructions do you have for me? The person in the lead had an extraordinary demeanor, akin to a sharp sword. Despite facing the statue, he was still respectful as he asked. The statue in front of him was none other than his master. His master had long since joined the Royal Sacred Sect and was currently roaming the world. Normally, it would be very difficult to meet him. Even for him, it had been many years since he last saw his master. When his master manifested his will, it would usually be for extremely important matters. But this time around, it was unknown why his master manifested his will. A bright light shone from the statue as a projection appeared in front of everyone. Within it, the silhouette of Qin Wentian could be seen. This young man is currently cultivating in the heavenly mountain range outside Xian King City. I want him to grow up in the Battle Sword sect, and in the future when the Royal Sacred Sect recruits disciples, I want him to enter the Royal Sacred Sect." The voice of the statue was solemn, causing the gazes of everyone to be fixated on the silhouette in the projection as they silently committed this person to memory. "We obey Master's orders." The person in the lead bowed to the statue, agreeing to this matter. "Remember, this matter is extremely important, you have to treat it seriously." The statue spoke again, his words causing the hearts of everyone to be filled with shock. They all knew what sort of character that old man was, yet he was actually so concerned about a young man. From this, one could see how important this young man was. Right. The person in the lead was none other than the current sect leader of the Battle Sword sect. He nodded his head once more as he spoke, "I will personally oversee this matter, I will definitely accomplish it. In addition, the commotion must be as great as possible, and at the same time, don't let him know that this is my command. It's best if he can make his own decision." The statue spoke again. The sect leader of the Battle Sword sect nodded his head once more. "Okay, I'm leaving." As the sound of the voice faded, the statue dimmed, causing the eyes of everyone to gleam with sharpness. This was especially so for the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect. A strange look flashed in his eyes. His master didn't even say a single word more, all for the sake of a young man. An instant later, the Battle Sword sect leader brought his men out of the Great Hall and issued an order to inform the 9 great sects as well as the Grand Shang Empire that their Battle Sword sect was going to recruit disciples in Xian King City. As this order was sent out, the entire Battle Sword sect was shaken. This was the first time their Battle Sword sect was recruiting disciples outside of their sect. In the past, it had always been others who were recruited by the Battle Sword sect. There was no other reason other than because the Battle Sword sect was the sect with the most freedom, the most unbridled and frivolous among the 9 great sections. Not only that, the location was set to be one of the royal cities of Grand Shang Empire, Xian King City. If this news were to circulate out, it was unknown how great of a commotion it would cause. They were all extremely curious as to what was going on with their sect leader. Why would he issue such a ridiculous order? However, since this was a direct order from their sect leader, they could only ensure that it was carried out strictly. At this moment, Qin Wentian had no idea that an intense storm was about to erupt because of him in Xian King City. When the news spread to Xian King City, no one would have guessed that the source of everything was the white-robed young man who was cultivating in the heavenly mountain range. At this moment, Qin Wentian was frenziedly absorbing the astral energy in his body. His yuanfu and arterial pathways were churning, and his astral novas were humming. A towering might gushed forth from him, incomparably violent. Evidently, he was already on the verge of breaking through. This scene lasted for an entire half a day. Finally, a cracking sound rang out as Qin Wentian's bones and meridians began to move. His yuanfu revolved frenziedly as his astral novas grew even more resplendent. His cultivation base had already stepped into the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Opening his eyes, the white-robed young man had a satisfied smile on his face. The beautiful eyes of the female protector on the peak of the snowy mountain also gleamed with a bright light. From afar, in a place where Qin Wentian couldn't see, the old man stood up. His face was flushed red, as though he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Bastard, do you think you can escape from this old man's palms? Let's see how much of a storm you can create." The old man laughed heartily, but soon after, his countenance changed. "Damn, I seem to have delayed things for too long." After speaking, his silhouette transformed into a gust of wind, instantly departing the area, bringing the person behind him along with him. It was as though he had never appeared here before. Chapter 502. Qin Wentian naturally didn't know what the old man was doing. After his cultivation base broke through to the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, he could clearly feel the changes in his body. He felt even stronger than before, and he couldn't wait for a battle to break out. Back then, the 6 great geniuses of Xian King City who ganged up on him all had a cultivation base at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. If Qin Wentian were to face them now, Qin Wentian had absolute confidence that he would be able to suppress them all. I wonder how Purgatory's recovery is going. Qin Wentian's bloodline thrummed as it seethed with power. Instantly, a blood-colored light emanated from his body, transforming into a gigantic shadow. This shadow gradually solidified. It was none other than the Purgatory vermilion bird. Back then, in order to protect him, Purgatory had almost lost its life in that battle. Qin Wendian just so happened to sense the changes in his bloodline, hence he decided to swallow Purgatory into his bloodline to recuperate. Right now, although Purgatory could already take form, it was still in a weakened state. It had yet to fully recover. When it saw Qin Wendian, it instantly let out a few long screeches as an expression of excitement flickered in its eyes. Qin Wendian was safe and sound. In fact, his aura had grown even stronger than before. Bzzz. Little rascal instantly leapt onto Purgatory's body. After which, it stretched out its paws and rubbed Purgatory's head as it spoke in a baby-like voice, "Little fellow." Purgatory's flapping wings froze, its body unmoving. The hair on its forehead stood on end as its eyes darted about, as though it was stunned by the words "little fellow" spoken by Little Rascal. Qin Wendian involuntarily laughed uproariously when he heard Little Rascal's voice. Little Rascal's voice was so baby-like, yet it was still rubbing Purgatory's head and calling it, "Little fellow." This was completely imitating what he did to Little Rascal. "Purgatory, rest well. Don't bother about Little Rascal." Qin Wendian smiled. Purgatory let out two screeches and nodded its head lightly. A moment later, the blood-colored light returned to Qin Wendian's body. Little Rascal floated in the air, baring its fangs and claws at Qin Wendian. It stared at Qin Wendian with a look of disdain. "Don't call me Little Rascal anymore. Talk to me again when you can speak more fluently." Qin Wendian laughed. After which, he walked up and pulled Little Rascal into his embrace. His silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. An instant later, he appeared before Qing and spoke, "Qing I'm going to make a trip to Xian King City. Just act the same as before, don't show your face." Qing's beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Qin Wendian, only to see Qin Wendian smiling. "Don't worry, I'll be careful. Don't forget, I can change my appearance." Although they managed to track me back then, they must have tracked the aura I left behind. Now, my aura has long dissipated, and I've also changed my identity. Who would know that I'm Qin Wendian? In any case, even if I meet with danger, I'll flee immediately. Qing stared at Qin Wendian before lightly nodding her head. "Also, help me take care of this Little Rascal." Qin Wendian patted Little Rascal on its head, quickly transform into a puppy. Little Rascal inclined its head and stared at Qin Wendian with an aggrieved expression on its face. After which, its body transformed into a real puppy, and it leaped into Qing's embrace. Qing's hands trembled slightly, but she still gently hugged Little Rascal. Little Rascal was very cooperative as it snuggled into her embrace, causing Qin Wendian to glare at it. "What a lecherous fellow, I'll let you off lightly." Qin Wendian laughed, his words causing Qing to stare at him unblinkingly. "I'm just casually saying it, Qing just pretend you didn't hear it." Qin Wendian laughed awkwardly. After which, his silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. The heavenly mountain range was boundlessly vast, mysterious and unfathomable. Qin Wendian actually took 3 days before he exited the heavenly mountain range, arriving at the Xian King City. Right now, it had already been several months since the treasure-seizing assembly of the heavenly mountain. The treasure-seizing assembly had already ended, and right now, there were only a few people left on the mountain peaks. Many of them were here to cultivate or to explore the depths of the heavenly mountain. Right now, Qin Wendian had already changed his appearance, but he was still as young as ever. He was clad in black and exuded a grave and stern aura, causing people to feel a sense of unapproachable pressure. His demeanor was completely different from before, and if he were to meet with people from the various major powers again, it would be impossible for them to recognize him. Michem. At this moment, Qin Wendian's eyes flickered as he stared in a certain direction. On the peak of a certain mountain peak, there was actually a silhouette of a maiden staring into the depths of the heavenly mountain, as though she was waiting for something. What caused Qin Wendian to be taken aback was that he was acquainted with this maiden. She was none other than Ji Shui, and after he obtained the constellation fruits, not only did she not bite the hand that fed her, she even wanted to help him. Sadly, her strength wasn't high enough, and if she were to help, she would only be courting death. Qin Wendian didn't blame Su Feng and Ji Shui for not helping him back then. He wasn't a cruel and unkind person, and in that situation, if they acted, it would be equivalent to courting death. If it was him in their shoes, he wouldn't have acted either. After all, although he had saved them before, the relationship between them hadn't reached the point where they could go through life and death together. Although Su Feng had a cold exterior, his character wasn't bad. As for Ji Shui, she was more passionate and gentle. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Shang Yu, Qin Wendian felt more comfortable looking at Ji Shui compared to Shang Yu. Qin Wendian stepped out, and an instant later, he arrived at a location not far away from Ji Shui. Ji Shui turned her head to look at him as she asked, "Sir, did you come from the depths of the heavenly mountain range?" Qin Wendian nodded his head. Back then, a great battle occurred in the heavenly mountain range, and the various major powers of Xian King City surrounded a young man. "Do you know of this matter?" Ji Shui couldn't help but to continue asking when she saw Qin Wendian nodding his head. "I know," Qin Wendian replied. "In that case, did you know of the ending of the battle when you were in the depths of the heavenly mountain range?" It was rumored that the experts of the major powers all returned in defeat, but that young man's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. How did he contend against them? Is he still alive now? Ji Shui stared at Qin Wendian, causing Qin Wendian's heart to tremble. So it turned out that Ji Shui was waiting for news of him here. Qin Wendian turned his head back, staring straight at Ji Shui as he asked, "That battle, I personally witnessed it. I naturally know the ending. However, what relationship does that young man have with you? Why are you asking about the ending of the battle?" "I'm not too interested in the ending of the battle. I only want to know if that young man in white is still alive or not." Upon hearing Qin Wendian's words, Ji Shui's voice was filled with agitation. "That young man is a good friend of mine, he saved my life before. Hence, I really want to know if he's still alive. Sir, please tell me. You've been staring at the heavenly mountain range from here, waiting for him to return?" A strange light flashed in Qin Wendian's eyes. He didn't expect that Ji Shui would care so much about his life and death. Ji Shui shook her head, "I only come here once a day, waiting for 4 hours to see if I can hear any news of him. He's still alive." Qin Wendian faintly spoke, his words causing Ji Shui's eyes to flash with a bright light. After which, she bowed to Qin Wendian, "Many thanks, may I know your surname?" "Qin." Qin Wendian's voice caused Ji Shui's gaze to freeze. Surnamed Qin, why were they so similar? However, the demeanor they exuded was completely different. Upon seeing Ji Shui's countenance, Qin Wendian's heart calmed down. Even if he said that his surname was Qin, Ji Shui wouldn't even dare to think about it. Naturally, no one would be able to recognize him. What a pity, if he was still alive, the 9 great sects would be recruiting disciples in the Xian King City. Such a matter is unprecedented in the history of the Xian King City. Given his talent, he would definitely be able to pass the inner disciple test of the Qinghua Mountains and become a true disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. At that time, why would he need to fear the major powers of the Xian King City? Ji Shui mumbled in a low voice. Qin Wendian's heart trembled as he asked, "The 9 great sects you speak of, are you referring to the 9 great sects under the Royal Sacred Sect?" They have already arrived in the Xian King City." Ji Shui stared at Qin Wendian as she smiled, "Brother Qin, if you are interested, you can give it a try. This is the first time something like this has happened in the Xian King City. In that case, all the geniuses from the major powers of the Xian King City would all go there to give it a try." A cold light flickered in Qin Wendian's eyes. Naturally, it's rumored that this matter was initiated by the Battle Sword sect. The Battle Sword sect has a legacy of tens of thousands of years and has never recruited disciples outside of their sect. Although the number of people in the Battle Sword sect is small, there's a saying in the Royal Sacred region, joining the Battle Sword sect is equivalent to joining the Royal Sacred sect. This time around, I have no idea why the Battle Sword sect would come to the Xian King city. Also, I heard that after the Battle Sword sect issued the order, within a single day, they already sent out experts to Grand Shang. This speed is simply too shocking. In addition, those from the other major powers all thought that the Battle Sword sect was planning something big and hence, they all came here to recruit disciples as well. It seems like they are planning to clash with the Battle Sword sect. In just a short few days, the Xian King city was already filled with experts from all over Grand Shang. I can't help but say that this matter is very strange. Ji Shui spoke in a low voice. She naturally didn't understand. Also, the secrets between the major powers wouldn't be made public. She would never have imagined that the person in front of her was none other than the person she was paying attention to. Many thanks. Qin Wendian naturally wouldn't acknowledge Ji Shui. What he wanted to do was extremely dangerous to himself, he naturally wouldn't implicate others. His silhouette flickered as he soared through the air, entering the Xian King city. After entering the Xian King city, the news that Qin Wendian heard the most was regarding the arrival of the 9 great sections. The 9 great sects were powers on the same level as the Grand Shang Empire. One could very well imagine how powerful they were. Because of this, the royal clan of Grand Shang personally came to Xian King city and was currently residing in the King Manor. During these few days, regardless of whether Qin Wendian was in an inn, or even on the streets, the topic of discussion was always about the 9 great sections. From this, one could very well imagine how intense the repercussions of this matter were. And right now, the 9 great sects were already preparing to recruit disciples in the central region of the Xian King city. As for the 9 great sects, the one that Qin Wendian heard the most was none other than the Battle Sword sect. This Battle Sword sect was extremely legendary. Back then, it was founded by an incomparably powerful sword cultivator. This sword cultivator was a legendary character akin to a sword immortal. When he was young, he roamed the world with a sword in his hands, acting chivalrously, unrestrained and carefree. After the founding of the Battle Sword sect, the philosophy of the sect was one of freedom, unrestrained, and unrestrained. Not only that, they didn't accept people with good talent. In fact, there were many talented geniuses who wanted to join the Battle Sword sect but were all rejected. Hence, the Battle Sword sect could be said to be the most difficult sect to join. And because of this, the Battle Sword sect had the least number of people, and their overall strength was the weakest among the 9 great sections. However, the Battle Sword sect always followed their own rules, never changing the philosophy of the sect. The disciples of the Battle Sword sect had the greatest amount of freedom, and even if they wanted to leave the sect, no one would care. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the disciples of the Battle Sword sect were very united when they were outside, and their relationships were very good. Although the overall strength of the Battle Sword sect was the weakest out of the 9 great sects because they had too few people, in terms of individual strength, there wasn't a single sect that dared to say that they were stronger than the Battle Sword sect. Joining the Battle Sword sect was equivalent to joining the Royal Sacred sect. In fact, because the members of the Battle Sword sect were too unique, there were many disciples who didn't even want to join the Royal Sacred sect. Chapter 503. The War Hall was one of the major powers in the Xian King city. They were extremely famous because the members of the War Hall were proficient in forging divine weapons. The old man of the War Hall could even forge 5th-rank divine weapons. It was just that he was already very old and his cultivation base was stuck at the Heavenly Dipper realm, unable to step into celestial phenomenon. Hence, when it came to forging divine weapons, it was already too late for him. The matters of the War Hall were all handed over to the younger generations, but there were many who inherited his legacy. Although they couldn't forge 5th-rank divine weapons, it wouldn't be a problem for them to forge 4th-ranked ones. Today, there were several people who came to the war hall early in the morning to forge divine weapons. However, the war hall was already used to this. Now that the 9 great sects had arrived in the Xian King city, the experts of the Xian King city were all extremely excited. They spared no expense in forging divine weapons, all for the sake of passing the test of the 9 great sections. Among these people, there was a black-robed young man. This young man was none other than Qin Wentian. In the future, he would frequently conceal his identity. He wanted to forge other types of divine weapons so that he could conceal his true identity from the eyes of others. What type of divine weapon do you want to forge? An attendant stood in front of Qin Wentian as he asked. A peak-tier 4th-ranked long spear, a peak-tier 4th-ranked battle axe, as well as 2 other mortal weapons that are exactly the same. Are you able to forge them? Qin Wentian asked. The eyes of the attendant flickered with a strange light as he stared at Qin Wentian. This fellow actually wanted to forge a high-grade 4th-ranked divine weapon. No. Qin Wentian frowned when he saw the attendant's silence, exuding a formless pressure. Cultivation depends on one's own combat prowess. A mid-grade 4th-ranked divine weapon is sufficient for you to display your full potential. I believe that you are doing this for the sake of the 9 great sects, right? A high-grade 4th-ranked divine weapon is already beyond the limits of your cultivation base, it's considered borrowing the power of an external force. Behind the attendant, on the stairs, stood a beautiful young lady with flawless skin. This young lady had a gentle appearance, yet she was dressed in a professional manner, exuding a valiant aura. Thanks for the reminder. Qin Wentian nodded slightly. When the woman saw that Qin Wentian didn't care about her words, she felt a bit depressed. However, this person also seemed to have an extraordinary temperament. His cold temperament gave people a feeling of sharpness. Even though he was just standing there, he gave her a faint pressure. It must be known that her cultivation was not weak at all. She was also prepared to try and see if she could pass the test of the 9 great sections. What about you guys? The lady then glanced at the requests of those beside Qin Wentian. The divine weapons they wanted to forge were all mid-grade 4th-ranked divine weapons that were more compatible with their strength. This way, others wouldn't say that they were borrowing the power of their divine weapons. The lady agreed to their requests one by one before she left. Yun Ro of the military house is becoming more and more beautiful. Her talent is also getting better and better. Seeing the girl leave, a man in yellow said with a smile. What? Brother Huang is interested in Yun Ro? The other person was wearing a simple white robe, and his hair was tied up. He looked very capable and experienced, and his eyes were extremely bright. Everyone loves beauty, what's so strange about that? The yellow-robed man laughed, as though he didn't care at all. However, the white-robed man mocked, I'm afraid Yun Ro wouldn't be interested in you. Humph, the yellow-robed man coldly snorted. After which, he turned his gaze to Qin Wentian as he casually asked, Sir, are you also preparing to participate in the test of the 9 great sects? I'm afraid the 9 great sects might not be interested in you if you borrow the power of your divine weapons. There's no need for you to worry about me. Qin Wentian faintly replied, his words causing the white-robed man to laugh, Brother Huang, others might not appreciate your kindness. You better take care of yourself first. Hee hee. The yellow-robed man coldly laughed. Not long after, Yun Ro and the attendants of the military house arrived. The price for forging divine weapons had already been stated clearly outside the door, there was naturally no need for any explanations. Qin Wentian stared at the items Yun Ro passed to him. There were 2 identical axes and 2 identical spears. Naturally, this was only in terms of appearance. The aura they exuded was completely different. Keep them well. Qin Wentian passed over a divine interspatial ring. Yun Ro received it, and after which, she sent her will into the interspatial ring. Nodding her head, she replied, My name is Yun Ro. If you are preparing to participate in the test of the 9 great sects, why don't we travel together? Qin Wentian glanced at Yun Ro before shaking his head, I, Qin, prefer to travel alone. Farewell. After speaking, Qin Wendian turned and walked out of the military headquarters. Yunro froze for a moment before a strange light flashed in her eyes. Her curiosity towards this cold-looking young man grew stronger and stronger. Her silhouette flickered as she followed after him. The two young men beside her felt even more depressed. They wanted to befriend Yunro, but Yunro didn't really like them. Instead, it was that cold-looking young man who attracted her attention. In the central region of the Xian King city, the location where the 9 great sects were currently located was a vast empty space. A majestic training ground was constructed, capable of easily accommodating over 10,000 people. Around the training ground, there were many spectator stands constructed. These were all specially constructed for the recruitment of the 9 great sects this time around. In the surroundings of this training ground, it was unknown how many people there were. If one stood on the training ground and gazed downwards, they would be able to see a sea of people. 9 banners, representing the 9 great sections. In the 9 directions of the training ground, there were 9 banners, and on each of the banners, there was a picture. That flag with the picture of a green mountain, represents the Qinghua Mountain. The picture of a gigantic axe, represents the heaven-cleaving manor. The picture of a great earth, represents the Great Earth sect. The picture of lightning, represents the Violet Thunder sect. The picture of a demonic dragon, represents the Divine Dragon Castle. The picture of a gigantic scorpion, represents the Sky Poison Valley. The picture of a devil halberd, represents the Blood Devil Palace. The picture of a beautiful lady, represents the Forgotten Immortal Tower. The picture of a sword, represents the Battle Sword sect. The experts from the 9 great sects all personally arrived. Not only that, the area in front of the training ground didn't belong to any of the 9 great sections. Instead, it belonged to the royal clan of Grand Shang. The royal clan of Grand Shang had personally sent people over. Those from the royal clan of Grand Shang also had no idea why the 9 great sects would choose to recruit disciples in the Xian King city and not the royal capital of Grand Shang. Not only that, it was said that the people from the 9 great sects were all from the Battle Sword sect. Ever since the Battle Sword sect was established, they had never recruited disciples outside of the Xian King city. The people from Grand Shang as well as the 9 great sects all arrived, sitting on the towering platform as they surveyed the surroundings. The hearts of the spectators below were filled with anticipation as they stared at the powerful silhouettes. This opportunity was extremely hard to come by. The 9 great sects were all superpowers on the same level as Grand Shang. If one could become a disciple of one of them, how prestigious would that be? This time around, the 9 great sects will only accept true disciples. Their cultivation bases must be at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper and below. Only those at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper would be able to stand on the training ground after passing the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. We will then see if any of the sects are willing to accept you. If the sects still wish to observe, you guys can perform well on the training ground until one of the sects is willing to accept you. At this moment, in the direction of the royal clan of Grand Shang, a person stood up and stated, "In addition, the royal clan of my Grand Shang is also willing to accept outstanding geniuses today. You guys better cherish this opportunity well." After speaking, he sat back down. The people from the 9 great sects were all very quiet, as though they were very casual. However, their gazes were fixed on the vast crowd. At this moment, the crowd was already in an uproar. The 9 great sects and Grand Shang were both recruiting disciples at the same time. This was an extremely rare opportunity. Violet Thunder Sword Drum Formation. The gazes of the crowd stared in the direction of the training ground. There was a slope that was tens of meters long and tens of meters wide. On top of it, numerous gigantic drums could be seen, and beside each drum, a sharp ancient sword could be seen stabbed into the ground. In the air, there was even a lightning pearl floating there, shining its light onto the gigantic drums and ancient swords below. The slope seemed to have come to life as the sounds of the drums echoed out, accompanied by the whistling of sword chi, causing the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. This time around, the 9 great sects didn't specify how long they would be recruiting disciples. It was very possible that they would recruit until they were satisfied. Only after passing the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation would one have the qualifications to be selected by the 9 great sections. Next, on the training ground, there would be many geniuses of the Heaven's chosen level. In order to attract the attention of the 9 great sects, these geniuses might even start a battle. Let me try. At this moment, a figure stepped out. This person was clad in green, and his brows were as sharp as swords. He exuded an aura of sharpness as he walked towards the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. At the instant he stepped onto the slope, his astral nova erupted forth as the sharpness of the swords pierced outwards. At the same time, a screen of sword chi protected him as he advanced forward. The sword formation abruptly flared up as the lightning pearl in the air flickered with a terrifying light. Violet lightning crackled as it blasted onto the gigantic drums. Instantly, the sounds of the drums shook the heavens as a pressure swept over everything. At the same time, the sword chi also blasted onto the drums, causing an incomparably chaotic killing intent to erupt forth. Because that person's speed was too fast, he only stopped when he reached the center of the formation. Scram! With a howl of rage, his astral nova blasted towards the gigantic drums on both sides. Peng, peng. Terrifying sounds reverberated in the air, directly causing him to spit out fresh blood. After which, when his attacks landed on the gigantic drums, he was met with an even more terrifying rebound force. Puchi! A beam of sword light slammed into his body. Very swiftly, the sounds of the drums shook the area as millions of beams of sword light erupted forth, shredding the body of that person into pieces. Such a scene caused the spectators to be filled with awe. What a terrifying formation! How could it be so easy to enter the 9 great sects and the royal clan of Grand Shang? A powerful existence was directly shredded into pieces. Qin Wentian, who was clad in black, stood at a certain location, quietly spectating. He contemplated the members of the 9 great sects, each of them were just like their names. Those from the Qinghua Mountains had an ethereal aura, those from the Battle Heaven Manor exuded a sharpness that could split the heavens. As for those from the Battle Sword sect, there were only a few of them sitting there. The feeling they gave off was one of casualness, yet within this casualness, there was a sharpness hidden within. After which, Qin Wentian turned his gaze in the direction of Grand Shang. Since the royal clan had arrived, the experts from the King Manor would naturally be there to welcome them. Hence, the experts from the King Manor were all present, including Shang Qi and Shang Yu. Other than them, there were also the representatives from the major powers of Xian King City. The Yin clan, Golden Fire Aristocrat clan, Wind Rock Aristocrat clan, etc. Is Yin Ting going to attempt it? At this moment, an expert from the King Manor stared at the young man walking towards the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. This young man was none other than the heaven chosen of the Yin clan, Yin Ting. The expert from the Yin clan had a smile on his face when he heard that. Let's hope there's a sect that would be interested in this young man. He was extremely confident that Yin Ting would be able to pass the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. This trial would definitely not be able to obstruct Yin Ting. Chapter 504. Qin Wentian stood within the crowd, inconspicuous. Upon seeing Yin Ting's appearance, his eyes flickered with killing intent. The 6 chosen ganged up on him, almost causing Little Rascal and Purgatory to die. If it wasn't for the 2 of them protecting him with their lives, he would have already died. And now, Purgatory was still heavily injured and could only survive in his bloodline. Since Yin Ting appeared today, it would be the day of his death. Beside Qin Wentian, Yun Ro stood there. She chased after Qin Wentian out of the military manor, feeling extremely curious about this black-robed man. But when she arrived here, she was instantly stunned by the scene before her eyes. The 9 great sects and the royal clan of Grand Shang had all arrived here. How shocking was this scene? Right now, Yin Ting from the Yin clan was fighting for a chance to become a disciple of the 9 great sects or join the royal clan of Grand Shang. This Yin Ting's strength is extremely powerful. I wonder if the 9 great sects would be able to take him seriously. Yunro was also shocked when she saw an expert dying within the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. She didn't expect that even obtaining the qualifications to join the 9 great sects would be so dangerous. Yin Ting had already stepped into the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. His entire body was bathed in lightning, and a vast amount of earth energy could be sensed from him. Every step he took was as heavy as a mountain, but as he ascended, the violet lightning within the formation howled in rage, sword chi howled, and the drumming sounds could sever the meridians of others. Yin Ting's steps were extremely slow, and when he reached the middle of the formation, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, Yin Ting's countenance flickered with the light of lightning. Violet lightning bolts protected his body, intertwining with the lightning in the formation. He continued advancing steadily, causing the tempest to intensify. On the way, he coughed out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Finally, he stepped out of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation as his aura fluctuated slightly. However, he was still extremely dazzling, attracting the gazes of the crowd. However, the people from the 9 great sects and the various empires didn't say a word, as though they didn't see anything. Geniuses from the major powers in Xian King City could only be considered geniuses when compared to the entire Grand Shang Empire. Given how vast Grand Shang was, there were still many geniuses like him. The 9 great sects naturally wouldn't choose him so easily, they would still have to wait and see his future performance. Although Yin Ting managed to pass through the formation, he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and suffered heavy injuries. Staring at Yin Ting, the crowd mused in their hearts, trying to gauge if they would be able to pass through the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. Yunro furrowed her brows and shook her head. She then sighed, "It seems like there's no hope for me. I can't get past this array." The 2 people beside Yunro were also at the side. When they heard this, they also revealed looks of disappointment. They were considered extraordinary people, but in the face of this formation, they felt powerless. After Yin Ting, more and more people entered the Purple Thunder Sword Drum array. Some failed, some died, and some succeeded. Qin Wendian didn't move from the start to the end, he was silently observing. In the blink of an eye, half a day passed and there were already many people who passed the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. Among them, there were many geniuses who didn't originate from the Xian King City. They came from the royal capital of Grand Shang, the other 6 out of the 7 king cities, or other regions. And now, all of them had gathered here. Yin Ting, Jin Yan, Jian Jingtian, Feng Yunhe, as well as Xiaoyu, had already stepped onto the stage. Out of the 6 heavens chosen, only Shang-Chi remained. The major powers they were from all had smiles on their faces, their hearts filled with anticipation. If they were chosen by the 9 great sects, they would have a chance to soar through the ranks and use it as a springboard to join the royal sacred sect in the future. Although there were already many experts on the stage, they weren't competing against each other. They were all waiting. As for their cultivation bases, the majority of them were at the 5th or 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. There were also those at the 4th level and below, but the number of them was extremely few. They knew that even if they managed to step onto the stage, their ending wouldn't be too good. This time around, the person in the lead of the Battle Sword sect was none other than Lin Shuai. Their ancestor had sent a message saying that they wanted to use this opportunity to find the white-robed young man in the projection. Given how vast Xian King City was, it was unknown if the white-robed young man had already left the Heavenly Mountain Range. How could it be so easy to find someone? They could only hope that they could use this opportunity to lure him out. The gathering of the 9 great sects should be enough to cause a commotion, right? If the white-robed young man was truly the person their ancestor was looking for, he would definitely be extraordinary. How could they miss out on this opportunity? Although Lin Shuai had yet to see the white-robed young man, he wasn't in a hurry. He had plenty of time, he could slowly wait. If the white-robed young man didn't appear, he would wait here for 3 months. Most probably, if his battle sword sect didn't leave, the other 9 great sects wouldn't leave as well. At this moment, Lin Shuai was extremely curious about the white-robed young man. His ancestor's personality was extremely eccentric, he was an extremely stubborn old man who did things as he pleased. Now that he heard that the white-robed young man was roaming the world, he naturally wanted to see what sort of character the white-robed young man was. If the white-robed young man knew that this was merely a prank played by his ancestor, who knew what he would think? Back then when the old man met Qin Wentian, it was indeed a coincidence. Qin Wentian and Qing both had their own personalities, which was why the old man paid attention to them for a period of time. Hence, this huge farce was born. On the training grounds, the silhouettes of Su Feng and Ji Shui appeared. They were both external disciples of the Qinghua Mountain, and naturally, they came here for the sake of the Qinghua Mountain. Su Feng walked to the front of the experts of the Qinghua Mountain as he stated, Junior Su Feng is an external disciple of the Qinghua Mountain. I wish to join the Qinghua Mountain and would like to request for seniors to grant me a chance to take the test. Since you wish to take the test directly, I shall grant you your wish. One of the experts from the Qinghua Mountain nodded his head at Su Feng. This young man was also an extraordinary character. With a wave of his hand, a green mountain floated in front of the spectator stands of the Qinghua Mountain. With a thunderous boom, the mountain directly landed on the training grounds. This mountain is named Green Mountain. If you can lift the mountain by 3 feet, I will directly acknowledge you and accept you into the Qinghua Mountain. An expert from the Qinghua Mountain spoke. Su Feng's countenance was solemn as he walked up to the front of the mountain. How could he possibly lift the entire mountain? He could only grab the mountain rampart and use his strength to lift it up. However, the mountain didn't budge at all. If I can lift the mountain, would I have a chance to join the Qinghua Mountain? Another expert asked. As long as we acknowledge you, it's fine. The expert from the Qinghua Mountain laughed. A moment later, Xiaoyu's silhouette flickered as 9 arms appeared at the same time, extending outwards and wrapping around the mountain. Rumbling sounds rang out as the mountain trembled and actually left the ground. However, in an instant, a thunderous boom rang out as Xiaoyu was powerless as the mountain slammed into the ground. This mountain is too heavy. Xiaoyu shook his head and sighed. There seemed to be a mysterious energy within the mountain. The stronger he was, the heavier the mountain would be. It's not the mountain that's heavy, it's a person. A voice drifted over, causing Xiaoyu to frown. Turning his gaze over, he only saw a figure walking over, placing his palms on the mountain. He closed his eyes and quietly sensed it. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, only then did his palms move. In that instant, the mountain was lifted 3 feet off the ground. Upon seeing this scene, the gazes of countless people turned to this person. This would be the first person to enter the Qinghua Mountain. Not bad, are you interested in joining the Qinghua Mountain? Junior is more than willing. That person bowed, his words causing smiles to appear on the faces of those from the Qinghua Mountain. Since they came to the Xian King city, they naturally had to obtain some harvest from this trip. At this moment, Yin Ting walked towards the direction of the Violet Thunder sect. On the viewing platform of the Violet Thunder sect, there was an expert who bore a striking resemblance to Yin Ting. Junior's name is Yin Ting, I hope to take this opportunity to join the Violet Thunder sect. Yin Ting bowed as he spoke. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect glanced at the person who bore a striking resemblance to Yin Ting and asked, this person is your nephew? Yes. That middle-aged man smiled and nodded. He then turned to Yin Ting, do your best to fight for this opportunity. Yes, uncle. Yin Ting nodded. Momentarily, the expert from the Violet Thunder sect pressed his palm downwards, and an instant later, a space of lightning appeared in front of him. Within this space, an illusory figure could be seen standing there, his entire body bathed in violet lightning. After you enter the puppet formation, you have a total of 7 steps. For every step you take, the puppet will send out a palm strike. If you can complete all 7 steps, you are considered to have passed. You are not allowed to resist. Yin Ting seriously nodded his head as he stepped into the space of lightning. And indeed, on the first step, the puppet blasted out a palm imprint of lightning, which Yin Ting withstood with his body. On the second step, the might of lightning ravaged the area, becoming even more tyrannical. On the third step, the thunder roared. On the fourth step, the lightning was like the waves of a tsunami. On the fifth step, the lightning was like a ferocious beast. Yin Ting's body was directly flung through the air, unable to complete the fifth step. Not bad, perform well. The expert from the Violet Thunder sect spoke. Even if Yin Ting's uncle was in the Violet Thunder sect, he wouldn't be so lenient. Junior Shuefei wishes to join the Heaven-Cleaving Manor. Junior Feng Yunhe wishes to join the Divine Dragon Castle. Junior, in the training grounds, the experts from the various powers all took the initiative to join their respective sections. For a period of time, all 9 sects took out their assessment methods, but the probability of passing was exceedingly low. Shang-Chi, go and give it a try. In the spectator stands of Grand Shang, an expert from the King's Manor spoke to Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi nodded his head and stepped past the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. After which, he walked towards the entrance of the Battle Sword sect as he stated, Junior Shang-Chi wishes to take a look at the assessment method of the Battle Sword sect. Lin Shuai glanced at Shang-Chi. This person didn't say that he wanted to join the Battle Sword sect, but rather, he wanted to take a look at the assessment method. With a wave of Lin Shuai's palms, numerous beams of sword light floated in the air, transforming into 9 rows that spanned across the entire space. This sword can kill the body and the heart. If you don't have a resolute heart, you will die for sure. Lin Shuai faintly spoke. Shang-Chi inclined his head and stared at the 9 rows of sword light. It was as though each row of sword light was condensed into an extremely sharp sword. He took a step forward and actually had the intention to retreat in his heart. If one didn't have a resolute heart, they would die for sure. When Shang-Chi stepped onto the training grounds, the 6 chosen from the 9 great sects also appeared. Qin Wentian stepped out, moving towards the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. Yun Ro, upon seeing Qin Wentian walking over, called out, the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation is extremely dangerous, only Heaven's Chosen can enter. Why take the risk? Many thanks for the reminder. Qin Wentian calmly replied. He was clad in black and exuded a grave and stern aura. Behind him, there were 2 mortal weapons strapped to his back. One was an axe, and the other was a long spear. The other 2 divine weapons were kept in his interspatial ring. He came here not for the sake of the 9 great sects, but to kill. Chapter 505. The number of people on the training grounds grew more and more. Many experts started to challenge others, hoping to display their combat prowess and gain the recognition of the 9 great sections. After all, the difficulty of the test was simply too high. The number of people who passed was extremely low. From this, one could very well imagine how strict the 9 great sects were in their recruitment process. Shang-Chi, after he took a step forward, he could feel the pressure from the 9 rows of sword light and ultimately chose to give up. Shang-Chi, a heaven chosen from the Xian King Manor, actually feared the Battle Sword sect's test. Before this, he wanted to test the Battle Sword sect but was frightened away by a single sentence from the experts of the Battle Sword sect. This sword not only slashed the body, it slashed the heart as well. If one didn't have a resolute heart, they would die for sure. Shang-Chi didn't dare to attempt the path of certain death. Many geniuses were gathered in the training grounds. Over at the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation, there were people who passed while others failed. Qin Wentian, who was clad in black, walked to the front of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation and directly stepped into it. At the instant his foot landed, thunderous rumbling sounds could be heard as bolts of violet lightning blasted towards him. Qin Wentian allowed the bolts of lightning to land on him as he continued walking forward. His steps were light and there seemed to be a formless fluctuation emanating from him, sensing everything within the formation. Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation, so it's like this. Qin Wentian's state of heart and perception was exceedingly powerful. Right now, he was able to sense every single pulse of the formation like the back of his hand. Very swiftly, he was able to see through the profoundness of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. When an attack landed on you, the stronger your resistance was, the stronger the resistance would be, causing the thunder drum to unleash sound waves of attack. At the same time, the thunderous rumbles would cause the lightning sword chi within the formation to wreak havoc. This formation was truly ingenious. Qin Wendian walked step by step up the slope as though he was walking on flat ground. No matter what attacks landed on him, they would circulate around him. He only used his mandate of force and mandate of demons to form a double layer of armor, and in just an instant, he had already walked out of the violet thunder sword drum formation. This scene caused the eyes of the people around the matrix to flash. They saw many people step into the matrix, and there were many who succeeded. Many of those who succeeded stepped into the matrix in an extremely domineering manner, using force to break force. They were domineering and powerful, and their prestige was vast and mighty. They revealed an insufferably arrogant spirit. However, they had never seen anyone like Qin Wendian who passed through the matrix so easily. The black-robed young man had a cold temperament, yet he gave off an unfathomable feeling, as if he couldn't be seen through. He walked up to the martial arts field and stood at the edge of the field, scanning his surroundings. He was not in a rush to pass the trial of the 9 great sects. At this time, Xiaoyu stood in the crowd and looked around at the assessment of the 9 sects, secretly estimating the difficulty. Regardless of which sect it was, the difficulty of the assessment was exceedingly high. After Shang-Chi gave up on the battle sword sect's assessment, there was one person who went up to attempt it. However, that person fell within the 9 rows of sword might. He only managed to pass the 3rd row before he was annihilated, leaving not even his bones behind. Since that person was able to pass the violet thunder sword drum formation, it was evident that his strength wasn't weak. However, he only managed to pass the 3rd row before he was annihilated. This made the battle sword sect's assessment even more terrifying. Xiaoyu naturally wouldn't choose the battle sword sect's assessment. As for the Qinghua mountain, he had already failed it earlier. Xiaoyu, why don't you try the Great Earth sect? You are proficient in the mandate of Great Earth, wouldn't that be perfect? At this moment, a voice rang out in Xiaoyu's ears. It was an elder of the Ecliptic sect who transmitted his voice to him. Although Xiaoyu was a member of the Ecliptic sect, it was clear that the Ecliptic sect wished for him to have a better future. For true geniuses, the sect wouldn't restrict their development. Once they reached a certain cultivation realm, they would have to step out sooner or later. It was enough for them to remember the sect. Xiaoyu glanced in the direction of the Ecliptic sect before nodding his head to a middle-aged man. After which, he slowly walked towards the direction of the Great Earth sect. At this moment, Jin Yan also walked in the direction of the Great Earth sect. Although he was proficient in fire, he had also comprehended the mandate of Great Earth. Back then when he fought against Yin Ting and Xiaoyu for the constellation fruits that contained the mandate of Great Earth, Qin Wendian beat them to it. In the end, they didn't even manage to obtain a single constellation fruit. Yin Ting's ambitions weren't with the Great Earth sect, but with the Violet Thunder sect. After all, he had an elder cultivating in the Violet Thunder sect. If he could enter the Violet Thunder sect, they would surely take good care of him. Hence, he didn't choose the direction of the Great Earth sect. The test for the Great Earth sect was a 3-meter-tall earth puppet. Its entire body was an earthen yellow color, resembling a great earth giant. The experts of the Great Earth sect said that those who could destroy the earth puppet with a single strike would pass regardless of their cultivation base. It was rumored that this earth puppet was the guardian of the Great Earth sect. It would grow stronger the stronger the opponent it faced. It was a puppet used by the Great Earth sect to temper the combat prowess of their disciples as well as to protect the sect. If one wanted to destroy it, they couldn't simply use brute force. Jin Yan and Xiaoyu walked up as they exchanged glances. "Brother Xia, you first." Jin Yan politely replied. "Sure." Xiaoyu nodded. 9 arms appeared as a pulsating sensation gushed forth. He stepped out, and with every step he took, the ground would tremble. "Break!" Xiaoyu howled in rage as his 9 arms blasted out towards the same location. His fist might towered up into the skies as a thunderous boom echoed out. Layers of shockwaves gushed into the earth puppet, causing it to tremble unceasingly. Parts of its body actually crumbled apart, transforming into yellow soil that fell to the ground. But an instant later, the eyes of the puppet flickered as the yellow soil on the ground returned to its body. This fist strike of mine contained 81 streams of fist might, yet it didn't shatter into pieces. Xiaoyu's countenance sank as he stepped aside to give way to Jin Yan. Jin Yan's countenance turned heavy as his golden flames bloodline erupted forth. His entire body was bathed in flames as a golden flame lotus appeared in his hands. His silhouette flickered as the golden lotus imprinted itself onto the body of the earth puppet, penetrating through it. After which, a towering flame might erupted forth from the body of the earth puppet. The 3-meter-tall earth puppet was bathed in flames, but under the flames, it stood there, unmoving. This caused Jin Yan's expression to change continuously. Brother Jin Yan, the test of the Great Earth sect should have something to do with the will of the mandate of Great Earth. It's only natural that you wouldn't be able to succeed with just the power of fire. Xiaoyu's voice was filled with satisfaction. After all, his performance was much more outstanding than Jin Yan's. Seems like you are prepared to continue. Jin Yan turned his head and stared at Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at the earth puppet, naturally. Scram! A voice drifted over from behind. Xiaoyu and Jin Yan abruptly turned, only to see a black-robed young man standing there, staring at them with eyes as sharp as swords. Many in the crowd turned their gazes over. Earlier, Xiaoyu's performance was already not bad, yet this black-robed young man suddenly appeared and told Xiaoyu and Jin Yan to scram. Xiaoyu could sense the aura exuding from Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. His lips curled into a smile as he coldly stated, "Take back your words earlier. If not, although you managed to step onto the stage, you will regret coming here." Scram! Jin Yan stared at Qin Wentian as he coldly spoke. The confrontation here attracted the attention of many in the crowd. Yun Ro, who was below the stage, was completely dumbfounded. This fellow, after passing the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation, he actually dared to antagonize Xiaoyu and Jin Yan from the Xian King city? Was he seeking death? Qin Wentian took off the bag on his back and opened it, revealing a long spear in his hands. His eyes swept over to the experts from the 9 great sects as he asked in a clear voice, "I only have one question. Are we allowed to kill on the stage?" An expert from the Grand Shang Empire laughed, "Since you stepped onto the stage, your life and death are up to fate. Others are not to interfere." The experts from the Ecliptic sect and Golden Fire Aristocrat clan all had cold expressions on their faces as they stared in the direction of Qin Wentian. Could it be that he wanted to kill Xiaoyu and Jin Yan? Even if his combat prowess was high and his talent was outstanding, how could he kill the heaven chosen from their sects who were a level higher than the black-robed young man? Courting death. An expert from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan coldly laughed. Xiaoyu and Jin Yan both had expressions of interest on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian from afar. Naturally, we are allowed to kill. Killing intent flashed in Xiaoyu's eyes. Qin Wentian tossed the black cloth that covered his long spear onto the stage as he stepped out. His footsteps were light, and there was no sound at all. His gaze was fixed on Xiaoyu, so calm that it felt a little abnormal. His aura was extremely calm. Xiaoyu's 9 arms glowed with an earthen yellow light as a heavy aura gushed forth, staring at Qin Wentian. This fellow. Yun Ro's eyes flickered with a strange light. Although she wasn't acquainted with Qin Wentian, she actually felt a little nervous at this moment. The spectators below the stage watched as Qin Wentian walked towards Xiaoyu, step by step. Their gazes were involuntarily drawn over as they followed Qin Wentian's footsteps. Finally, the distance between Qin Wentian and Xiaoyu grew nearer and nearer. He lifted his foot, and as his foot stomped down, a thunderous boom echoed out. In that instant, Xiaoyu felt his heart pounding violently as a formless pressure enveloped him. Qin Wentian continued to raise his foot and stomp down. Although he seemed calm, Xiaoyu felt his breathing becoming ragged. His heart was pounding violently as he felt a strong sense of danger. Attack! Xiaoyu's body whistled as his 9 arms struck out in anger. Violent air currents instantly swept out. In that instant, Qin Wendian struck out with his spear. This spear strike was soundless, there was no whistling of the wind, no turbulent air currents, only speed. It instantly penetrated through the fist light, piercing towards Xiaoyu's throat. Bang! In that instant, Xiaoyu only felt his head spinning as the sky darkened. He felt as though he was in hell as a million spear beams shot towards him, causing his countenance to turn pale white. This was the dreamscape, directly causing him to fall into a trance. His astral nova erupted forth as the air currents around him frenziedly protected his body. Puchi! A light sound rang out, interrupting everything. Xiaoyu's mind regained clarity as he stared at the black-robed young man in front of him. His lips trembled as though he wanted to ask something. Who are you? You are the first of the 6 chosen. A voice rang out in Xiaoyu's ears. Xiaoyu's eyes widened as he stared fixedly at the black-robed young man in front of him. This voice should belong to the other young man, the white-robed young man who had fought against the 6 chosen earlier. As the long spear was pulled out, blood splattered everywhere. The entire stage abruptly turned silent as the gazes of the spectators all focused on this place. The heaven chosen of the Xian King city's ecliptic sect, Xiaoyu, had his throat pierced by a single spear strike. Chapter 506. The atmosphere in the training grounds abruptly turned silent. This time around, when the 9 great sects were about to arrive, the experts present were all present. On the training grounds, although Xiaoyu was a heavens chosen from the Xian King city, he wasn't the most dazzling one. However, his death still attracted the attention of everyone. Because that spear strike was too dazzling. They didn't know what Xiaoyu had experienced, how his throat was slit by a single spear strike. They couldn't understand how a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign from the Xian King city died before he could even unleash his full strength. Precisely because they couldn't understand, it was terrifying. The long spear in the hands of the black-robed young man was only an ordinary weapon. And right now, this ordinary weapon was dripping with blood. That blood belonged to a heavens chosen from the Xian King city. Yunro, who was among the crowd, felt her heart pounding. At the instant when Qin Wendian stabbed out, her nervousness rose to the peak. When the spear pierced through Xiaoyu's throat, she even felt a sense of suffocation. Even now, she still hadn't calmed down, her heart was still thumping wildly. This caused her to be extremely curious about this black-robed young man. How powerful! The 2 people beside her were also dumbfounded. They had thought that Qin Wendian would bring along a top-grade, 4th-ranked divine weapon to participate in the examination of the 9 great sections. Yet, Qin Wendian had only used an ordinary weapon. In the spectator stands, several figures abruptly stood up. Their countenances were ice-cold, and a terrifying baleful aura could be seen flickering in their eyes. They were experts from the ecliptic sect. Xiaoyu was a heavens chosen of their sect, yet his throat was slit by the black-robed young man. Only now did they understand the meaning behind Qin Wendian's earlier words. He only wanted to ask a single question. Was it permissible to kill on the training grounds? The gazes of those from the 9 great sects as well as the royal Shang Empire all turned to Qin Wendian. The black-robed young man gripped his long spear tightly. The ordinary spear didn't even tremble in the slightest. His hands were too steady, not moving an inch. His gaze was on Jin Yan. His gaze was like a sharp blade, directly piercing into Jin Yan's eyes, causing him to awaken from his stupor. Xiaoyu wasn't the only one blocking Qin Wendian's path. Wasn't Jin Yan the same as well? Thinking up to this point, Jin Yan's aura erupted out crazily. Raging flames rose to the skies, his blood boiled, and the surrounding temperature rose rapidly. Buzz! The long spear in Qin Wendian's hand stabbed straight out. It was still silent, but it was fast enough that the sound could not reach the ears of the crowd. This time, those experts were all staring at Qin Wendian's spear. His spear didn't seem to have much abnormality, or it could be said that they didn't know how to describe this amazing spear. It was so amazing that it couldn't be judged. They didn't know what Jin Yen was experiencing at this moment. In the instant that seemingly ordinary spear thrust out, he had already felt the call of the Grim Reaper. His mind was in a state of chaos, as if he had fallen into a demonic barrier. In a world of darkness that was as dark as blood, there was only a single spear coming at him from all directions. He had even lost his sense of direction, as if he would die no matter where he went. Pooh! A light sound rang out. Jin Yen finally felt the despair in Xiaoyu's heart. He finally understood why Xiaoyu would wait for his death under this spear, with no strength to resist at all. Only when he himself faced this spear did he know how terrifying this devil's spear was. Who did he offend? Why did they want to kill him? Jin Yen, the second one. A familiar voice drifted into Jin Yan's ears. After which, a silhouette suddenly appeared in his mind. It was that white-robed figure who dared to snatch half of the constellation fruits when the experts were as numerous as the clouds. The 6 chosen ganged up on him, yet he managed to escape. After that, the experts from the 6 transcendent powers chased after him, yet they were all chased away by his purgatory vermilion bird. It's him. A thought flashed through Jin Yan's mind. After which, his body turned cold as his consciousness gradually dissipated. Jin Yen. In the spectator stands on the arena, a hoarse voice rang out. In the direction of the royal clan, an expert from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan stood up, his countenance pale as he stared at the corpse of Jin Yen. Jin Yen was the same as Xiaoyu, his throat was pierced by a single spear strike. 2 heavens chosen died in the hands of the same person. Under the same spear strike, they had no way to resist at all. Right now, Qin Wentian's 4 mandates had all reached the transformation boundary. He had trained in the halberd for tens of days, and every single strike he executed contained the mandate of dreams. Now that he had switched to the transformation boundary of the 2nd level of the mandate of dreams, his opponents clearly knew that it was fake. However, the mandate of dreams was too strong, it corroded their will, causing their mandates to enter a dreamscape. In addition to his spear arts, although Xiaoyu and Jin Yen were a level higher than Qin Wentian, how could they not die? In the past, Qin Wentian had to use the power of his bloodline to fight against the 6 chosen. But now that he had broken through to the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, killing the 6 chosen was as easy as flipping his palms. This was the suppression of the will of mandates. The crowd in the surroundings was in an uproar. 2 heavens chosen from the major powers of the Xian King city were killed with a single spear strike. Staring at the corpses on the arena, the hearts of the spectators couldn't calm down. What a ruthless method. Not only that, he was so strong, so arrogant. Are they even qualified to participate in the examination of the 9 great sects? Qin Wentian was still wielding the long spear in his hands. He slowly turned and stared at the experts on the arena as he spoke. This Xiaoyu and Jin Yen, they seem to have the reputation of being heavens chosen in the Xian King city, yet they are actually trash. In that case, the other heavens chosen from the Yin clan, Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Heaven's Shocking Sword sect and the other major powers should be the same, right? Why don't you all scram down from the arena, lest you embarrass yourselves here? A single sentence from Qin Wentian had offended all the heavens chosen from the major powers of the Xian King city. The heavens chosen from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe. The heavens chosen from the Yin clan, Yin Ting. The heavens chosen from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect, Jian Jingtian. Right now, all of them were still on the arena. The black-robed young man was simply too lawless. Sir, aren't your words a little too arrogant? Yin Ting took a few steps forward, the might of lightning radiating from him. He didn't know about the spear strike Xiaoyu and Jin Yen experienced. If not, he wouldn't even stand out to speak. But now, he wanted to join the Violet Thunder sect. How could he lose face in front of the Violet Thunder sect? Do you really think that you are invincible just based on your spear arts? Feng Yunhe coldly snorted. His speed was unparalleled, he was the strongest among the heavens chosen. Xiaoyu and Jin Yan might not be able to evade that spear strike, but he didn't think that he wouldn't be able to do so as well. Jian Jingtian didn't reply. A powerful sword intent gushed forth from him. Jian Jingtian from the heaven-shocking sword sect. His swordsmanship could shake the heavens and was as fast as lightning. He knew that he wouldn't lose out to Qin Wentian in terms of spear arts. Qin Wentian coldly laughed. Wielding the long spear in his hands, he slowly walked towards the center of the training grounds. After which, he halted and spoke in a carefree manner, "The three of you can come at me together." As the sound of his voice faded, a light breeze gusted by, fluttering his black robes. There were many geniuses on the gigantic arena, many of them were even more outstanding compared to the heavens chosen from the Xian King city. There were even some among them who had already passed the test of the 9 great sections. But at this moment, the young man in black with the long spear in his hands became the center of attention, attracting the attention of everyone. Feng Yunhe, Jian Jingtian, Yin Ting, these 3 fifth-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns were humiliated in such a manner. They couldn't find any reason to cower. The cultivation base of the young man in black was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. If they didn't accept the challenge, how would they have the face to remain on the arena? How would they have the qualifications to become disciples of the 9 great sects? Even if their talent was outstanding and they passed the test of the 9 great sects, the 9 great sects wouldn't accept them. Don't hesitate any longer. If not, you won't even have a chance to act. Qin Wentian's voice rang out once more. Yin Ting, Feng Yunhe and Jian Jingtian all made their moves. Although 3 against 1 wasn't something glorious, Qin Wentian's domineering manner of killing Xiaoyu and Jin Yan was simply too domineering. If they were to fight against Qin Wentian alone, they wouldn't dare to do so. His astral nova erupted forth as Jian Jingtian slashed out with his sword. The violent sword qi transformed into a terrifying tidal wave, gushing towards Qin Wentian. Yin Ting also acted. His silhouette soared up into the air, staring down at Qin Wentian. With an explosive roar, a gigantic lightning palm imprint appeared in the air, pressing down from the heavens, aiming straight for Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's silhouette soared up into the air as he stabbed out with his spear. In that instant, he was no longer as silent as before. His entire person was akin to a hegemon of an era, imbued with a towering aura. As the spear stabbed out, the space around it shattered. The gigantic palm imprint exploded as Qin Wentian's silhouette shot upwards, aiming for Yin Ting. Fast, his speed was too fast. Qin Wentian's spear struck out, shattering the gigantic palm imprint as he evaded the terrifying sword might. Feng Yunhe also arrived. The instant Jian Jingtian and Yin Ting made their moves, he was akin to a great rock, pressing down on Qin Wentian. His golden palms were indestructible as they directly smashed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian blasted out with his left palm, yet his body didn't slow down at all. Instead, he continued soaring up into the air, emitting a tyrannical aura. Yin Ting's will of the mandate of Great Earth pressed downwards. Qin Wentian's body was extremely heavy, yet it didn't obstruct his determination to kill Yin Ting. Block him. Jian Jingtian's silhouette flickered as he sped over. Yin Ting's eyes flashed with lightning as a towering amount of lightning energy gushed forth from his body, condensing into a gigantic lightning sword that was infused with the will of multiple mandates. The blood in Qin Wentian's body surged as the mandate of force and mandate of demons erupted from his right arm. His long spear was like a hot knife cutting through butter, piercing out with unstoppable force. Qin Wentian soared up into the skies, his long spear pointed straight at the dome of the heavens. This spear strike of his was like a peerless overlord. Bang! The gigantic lightning sword shattered. No amount of energy could block the sure kill intent contained within this spear strike. Abruptly, a bloody light flashed in Yin Ting's mind as the entire world seemed to have vanished. Third. Qin Wentian's voice rang out in his mind. After which, the tyrannical spear pierced into his body, causing the spectators to tremble violently. Yin Ting had fallen. This was the 3rd heaven chosen to die. Die. Jian Jingtian felt a sense of sorrow in his heart when he saw Yin Ting's death. It was as though Yin Ting's death was his ending as well. A single sword strike shook the heavens, the entire space was destroyed by the sword intent. At the instant Qin Wentian killed Yin Ting, his long spear swept out horizontally like a wooden rod, smashing into the incoming golden palm imprint of Feng Yunhe. Qin Wentian's body was like a gust of wind as he soared up into the skies, directly escaping from the attack of the sword Qi. How fast! Qin Wentian had cultivated the rock flash innate technique before. He was akin to a great rock, and in addition to the demonic blood in his veins, his speed was naturally fast. He stood in the air, staring down at the two of them as he kept his long spear. After which, he retrieved the great axe strapped to his back, and with a flicker of his silhouette, he dashed towards Jian Jingtian. I don't believe it. Jian Jingtian coldly spoke. His astral nova directly tore through the skies, exploding outwards. Qin Wentian didn't evade, he directly cleaved downwards with his great axe. A single axe split the heavens. As the great axe descended, even the heavens and earth trembled. When it slammed into Jian Jingtian's astral nova, Jian Jingtian groaned in agony. His astral nova felt as though it was on the verge of shattering. He only saw a beam of axe light slashing downwards, causing his body to involuntarily tremble as he hurriedly retreated. The might contained within that axe strike caused him to feel terror in his heart. Slash! Qin Wentian roared, the axe in his hand cleaved downwards through the air. Puchi! The center of Jian Jingtian's brows was split open, and a long line of blood flowed out from the wound. This is sword art. Jian Jingtian spat out as his body fell from the skies. Chapter 507. In the direction where the royal clan of Grand Shang was located, the experts stood up one after another, howling with rage, wanting to press down on the training grounds. The 9 great sects had arrived, the royal clan of Grand Shang followed, accompanied by the King Manor. The representatives of the major powers of Xian King City were all here, including the Golden Fire Aristocrat Clan, Wind Rock Aristocrat Clan and the Yin Clan. But at this moment, they personally witnessed the geniuses of their respective powers dying in the hands of Qin Wentian. Xiaoyu died, Jin Yan died. Earlier, Yin Ting was killed and Jian Jingtian was slain. These 4 were all geniuses of Xian King City, yet they all died in the hands of the same person. This caused the people of Xian King City to feel stifled. This time around, the demon-level geniuses from the 9 great sects all came here with high hopes, wanting to become disciples of the 9 great sections. Yet because of the appearance of the black-robed young man, all of them died one after another. Jian Jingtian's body fell from the air, but before he died, a voice rang out in his ears. The 4th one. The axe strike that killed him was indeed a sword art. The will of the mandate of the sword note mandate slashed out with the tip of the axe, destroying Jian Jingtian. Feng Yunhe wanted to continue rushing forward, but upon seeing Jian Jingtian's death, he instantly halted. After which, with a howl of madness, he grabbed out with his palms, causing a gigantic rock to fly towards Qin Wentian, blotting out the skies. However, he abruptly turned and fled, wanting to leave the training grounds. Feng Yunhe of the Wind Rock Aristocrat Clan didn't dare to continue fighting. He wanted to leave the training grounds. Even if he lost face, even if he couldn't enter the 9 great sects, he still had to leave. Qin Wentian spun in the air, slashing out with his axe in rage. A beam of resplendent light tore through the air, directly tearing apart the shadow of the great rock. Staring at Feng Yunhe fleeing, Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light, as an intense killing intent gushed forth from him. Bzzz. A gust of wind swept past. Qin Wentian's speed was as fast as lightning. He threw the axe forward and then slapped forward with his palm. This palm strike caused the heavens and earth to tremble. The pulse of the entire space was enveloped by this palm strike. The palm energy transformed into raging waves that actually emitted rumbling sounds. The power of the palm caused the space around it to tremble, growing stronger and stronger as it transformed into a monstrous shockwave that blasted towards Feng Yunhe. Feng Yunhe howled in rage. With a wave of his palms, a layer of resplendent armor appeared on his body. Terrifying shockwaves blasted into his body, causing him to cough out a mouthful of blood. That energy directly penetrated into his body, severing his meridians and ending his life, wanting to destroy his 5 viscera and 6 bowels. This was an illusory shockwave. Buzz! Feng Yunhe didn't dare to slow down. He continued sprinting forwards, and just when he was about to reach the bottom of the training grounds, Qin Wendian once again grabbed hold of the great axe he had tossed out. With lightning speed, he appeared behind Feng Yunhe and cleaved downwards. Careful! The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan roared. They only saw the black-robed Qin Wendian brandishing the axe, intending to split the heavens apart. Just that might alone caused their hearts to palpitate wildly. Feng Yunhe naturally sensed the might behind him. With a howl of madness, the astral energy in his body erupted forth, protecting him. His wings abruptly unfurled, wrapping around his entire body. The black-robed man was like a heavenly deity as he chopped down with his axe, slamming into Feng Yunhe's body. With a thunderous boom, Feng Yunhe's body was directly smashed out of the martial arts practice field, causing the earth to shatter. The spectators in the surroundings hurriedly retreated. The terrifying shockwave actually caused them to lose their balance. Yunhe. Numerous silhouettes dashed towards Feng Yunhe, only to see that Feng Yunhe, who was protected by Feng Yunhe's wings and divine weapon, wasn't moving at all. When the experts tried to remove Feng Yunhe's wings, they discovered that Feng Yunhe's body had already been split apart. Blood flowed from his 7 apertures, and his internal organs had all been ruptured. He had long since stopped breathing, and couldn't be more dead. Qin Wendian had comprehended the second level of the mandate of force, the void shockwave. In addition to his powerful perception, the instant he struck out, the power of the shockwave directly permeated into his body, transforming into a pulsating energy that could destroy everything. Although Feng Yunhe was protected by a divine weapon, there was no doubt that he would die. The spectators inclined their heads and stared at the black-robed young man standing in the air. Although he was only wielding an ordinary axe, he was like a god of war, exuding an unparalleled might. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan glanced at Qin Wendian, only to see a terrifying killing intent flickering in the eyes of one of them as he icily stated, "You are courting death." As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying wave of demonic qi gushed forth. Qin Wendian stared at the black-robed young man as he roared, "Do you treat the promise made by the 9 great sects as farts?" As the sound of his voice faded, the tyrannical aura radiating from the black-robed young man abruptly froze as he stared fixedly at the black-robed young man in the air. "Can't even withstand a single strike, yet you still claim to be a heaven's chosen. What's there to regret about your death? I shall help the Xian King city to wipe out these people with undeserved reputations." Qin Wendian coldly spoke. His silhouette flickered as he returned to the training grounds. The gazes of the spectators were all fixed on him, their eyes filled with hatred, as though they wanted nothing more than to kill him and dig out his heart. Those who died were all geniuses from their respective clans and sects, geniuses who had the potential to join the 9 great sections. Yet, all of them died just like that. Right now, the 9 great sects and the royal clan of Grand Shang were all present. The royal clan had already stated that no one was to interfere. What could they do? They could only wait for Qin Wendian to come down before they made him die a miserable death. However, this young man's strength was too tyrannical. If he joined the 9 great sects, wouldn't that mean that they wouldn't even have a chance to take revenge? As they thought of this, they grew even more nervous as they stared at Qin Wendian. This black-robed young man was so domineering, he would definitely join the 9 great sects in the selection test. Those from the 9 great sects also noticed Qin Wendian. An expert from the Qinghua Mountains turned his gaze onto Qin Wendian as he asked, "Are you interested in joining my Qinghua Mountains?" As the sound of his voice faded, the spectators all drew in a deep breath. The 9 great sects were here to recruit disciples, allowing them to display their prowess on the training grounds. The black-robed young man killed 5 heavens chosen, and he even jumped levels to kill them. He even fought against 3 of them at the same time. Such combat talent left many in the dust. His comprehension of mandates far surpassed the geniuses of the Xian King city. Most probably, there weren't many in the same generation as him in the Xian King city. And now, the Qinghua Mountains extended an invitation to him. This black-robed young man was the first person who didn't take the initiative to join the 9 great sections. This caused those experts from the major powers in the Xian King city to feel nervous. If this black-robed young man agreed to the invitation of the Qinghua Mountains, would they still be able to kill him? In the direction of the royal clan of Grand Shang, the person in the lead was an old man clad in luxurious robes. His countenance was incomparably imposing, causing others to feel immense pressure just by looking at him. At this moment, the old man leaned forward, leaning towards a young man sitting in front of him as he asked in a low voice, "What do you think of this young man?" This young man was clad in golden robes. His features weren't handsome, yet he exuded an aura of heroism. With a single glance, one could tell that this man was no ordinary character. Just by sitting there, he caused others to feel a sense of reverence towards him. His eyes were especially peculiar, glowing with a golden light. Within his pupils, there was a blazing scarlet flame that was incomparably sharp, capable of penetrating through everything. This man used a secret art to disguise his features. The eyes of the young man stared at Qin Wentian, as though he could see through all secrets. He intentionally provoked the heaven chosen of the Xian King city. I'm afraid he didn't come here because of the 9 great sections. His purpose is to kill. As the sound of his voice faded, the eyes of the old man gleamed with sharpness. He didn't doubt the words of the young man in luxurious robes at all. Given how sharp his eyes were, nothing could hide from him. Since he said that Qin Wentian used a secret art to disguise his features, it must be true. At this moment, on the training ground, Qin Wentian stared at the expert from the Qinghua Mountains as he spoke, "I killed 5 geniuses of the Xian King city, the major powers will surely seek revenge." As the sound of his voice faded, the expert from the Qinghua Mountains smiled, "Don't worry, if you join my Qinghua Mountains, you will be a disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. The Qinghua Mountains will naturally protect your safety." "Many thanks, I will consider the Qinghua Mountains first." Qin Wentian glanced in that direction and nodded his head in agreement, his actions causing many in the crowd to feel shock in their hearts. This young man was truly arrogant, he only said that he would consider the Qinghua Mountains invitation instead of directly agreeing to it. Good. The expert from the Qinghua Mountains smiled, he naturally wouldn't force the issue. Qin Wentian naturally had the right to choose. As expected. In that case, who is the next person he wants to kill? That expert from the Grand Shang Empire had an expression of interest on his face when he heard Qin Wentian's reply. He wanted to see who Qin Wentian was going to target. If he doesn't act now, there won't be many chances left. The major powers of the Xian King city have all gathered in front of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. Evidently, they want to kill him. The eyes of the young man in luxurious robes shone with a brilliant light. Many in the crowd noticed that there were many experts gathered at the bottom of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. Their strength was extremely terrifying, and the majority of them were at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, the highest cultivation level allowed to participate in the examination. Qin Wentian killed the chosen of the 5 major powers. Xia Yu from the Luoho sect, Yin Ting from the Yin clan, Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan, Jin Yan from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan, and Jian Jingtian from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect. How could these 5 major powers spare Qin Wentian? They had to think of a way to send the most powerful experts from their clans and sects to the training grounds to kill Qin Wentian. The eyes of the young man in luxurious robes gleamed with a resplendent golden light as a golden halo appeared in the center of his brows. An expression of interest appeared on his face, he wanted to see if there was anyone else the young man in disguise wanted to kill. Qin Wentian kept his great axe and took out his long spear. His eyes were as sharp as his spear as he swept his gaze across the crowd. After which, his gaze landed on Shang-Chi. I've heard that Shang-Chi of the king's estate is the leader of the various heavens chosen. His bloodline is extremely powerful, I'm sure you won't disappoint us like the others. Qin Wentian slowly walked out, the faint smile on his face was as sharp as a blade. Shang-Chi furrowed his brows. The strength of this black-robed young man was too strong. He felt that he wouldn't be able to kill the chosen of the 5 major powers. Seeing the black-robed young man walking closer, Shang-Chi had the urge to retreat. And at this moment, the young man in luxurious robes had a strange expression on his face. So it turned out that the black-robed young man's target was Shang-Chi. No matter what, Shang-Chi was a member of the royal clan, a prince of the king's estate. Hence, Shang-Chi had great respect for the black-robed young man. Hence, he reminded, Shang-Chi, this man has concealed his true appearance. He's here to kill all of you. As the sound of his voice faded, the experts from the 5 major powers all had a cold glint in their eyes. This black-robed young man had concealed his identity and came here to kill all of them. When Shang-Chi heard this, his mind spun madly as he suddenly recalled the connection between the 6 of them. They had once joined forces to kill a certain person. That person was clad in white. Bang! Stepping out, Shang-Chi turned and fled, madly sprinting in the direction of the royal clan. At the same time, he roared, "This person is the one who seized the constellation fruits." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.